Well, thank you, Matthew, for these very generous words, and thank you all very much for your presence. It's a great delight to be back here in York. This is a lecture about Niccolo Machiavelli and his best-known work of political theory, The Prince, Il Principe. But I want first to say a word about Machiavelli himself. A Florentine, born 1469, he first of all devoted himself to a life of public service. And it's an important fact about his biography that he wouldn't have expected in his earlier years to have been the author of any work of politics. He devoted himself, as I say, to the service of the Republic, and he was indeed second chancellor of the Florentine Republic from 1498 until the sudden collapse of the Republic and the return of the Medici princes to power in 1512. 1512 was a great year of crisis for Machiavelli. He was not only summarily removed from his position in the Second Chancery, but he became an object of suspicion to the Medicians, alleged to have taken part in a plot against the return of the Medici princes to power, and he was imprisoned and tortured. He is released from prison in a general amnesty at the beginning of 1513. But he is ordered to absent himself from the city. He is in compulsory exile from the city, living in his farm south of the city, overlooking it, but he's not permitted to re-enter that space. And that is the end of his public career. Tremendous division in his life, 1512, because from that time onwards he has no public role, no political office, and becomes the man of letters, the philosopher of politics, who is known to posterity. Now, settling down early in 1513 in the countryside, in forced leisure, which he hated, he writes a famous letter to his friend Vettori, Francesco Vettori, in December of 1513, in which he says, well, how have I been occupying this enforced leisure? He says, well, I have just finished writing a little book which is De Principatibus, concerning principalities. And he is referring clearly to the completion of his treatise, The Prince. Now, if Machiavelli began writing that little book, as he implies, as soon as he was let out of jail, then he began to write it exactly 500 years ago to the month. So it's this date. It's a great anniversary for Machiavelli scholars, the writing of The Prince, the beginning of the writing of The Prince, exactly 500 years ago in February or March of 1513. So it's that date, as well as the book, that I want, in a way, formal rhetorical exhortatio to the Medici to restore Italian unity, but the previous 25 chapters being this analysis of how to gain and hold power. The pivotal chapter, I think, is chapter 15, in which Machiavelli declares that his aim in writing the book is to offer practical advice about statecraft. And his basic aim, he says at the end of the book, is, this is chapter 24, to offer advice to new princes. He's not interested in established princes. If you've inherited your principality and you can't hold on to it, then you're too incompetent to be worth thinking about. He's only interested in new princes who have the greatest difficulty. And the aspiration, as he nicely puts it, is to make new princes look like well-established ones. That's the practical aim of the advice. Now, he discusses rulers of antiquity and rulers of the present time, both as sources of exemplar. Of course, the idea of operating with examples as much as with arguments, very typical feature of Renaissance rhetorical culture. So, as you would expect, no doubt, all the princes, all the political leaders whom he discusses in antiquity and in his own time are men. And that means that the vocabulary of the prince is quite a heavily gendered vocabulary, and not to be anachronistic, I'm going to have to follow it. But let's notice at the outset that not all the rulers whom Machiavelli discusses were in fact men. One whom he mentions with great admiration, both in the Principe and later in the Discorsi, is a woman, Caterina Sforza. And as we shall see, everything that he has to say about the requisite qualities for political leadership would apply to women rulers as much as to male rulers. Now, there is one indispensable quality, or rather set of qualities, that any political leader, man or woman, any political leader must possess, according to Machiavelli, if they are to succeed in their leadership. And this is the quality which in the Italian is called virtù. Now this word, la virtù, it's the same in the plural, le virtù, echoes throughout the book. It occurs once in Latin. As perhaps you know, of course, the book is in Italian, but the chapter headings of this book are in Latin. And chapter 6 has the Latin form, virtus. That's the only occurrence of it in Latin in the whole text. But for those who like precision, the word virtù, either in the singular or the plural, occurs 60 times in this extremely short book. So that's an average of getting on for once per page. It's absolutely pivotal to the argument of most of the chapters, this notion of princely virtù. And so correspondingly, it seems to me, the pivotal task of the interpreter of this book is to understand what he meant when he used that crucial term. Now, Machiavelli never supplies a formal definition. That's not his way. He's not Hobbes, as it were. And it's true to say that he uses the term virtù in a quite wide variety of contexts, so wide that it's become quite standard to say in the critical literature, I quote, for example, Whitfield, that he uses the word without any consistency at all. Now, the first point I want to make is that I really don't agree with that. It seems to me that this term, pivotal to the argument, is used with complete consistency. It is applied throughout this brief book as the name of a set of qualities which Machiavelli wants to say several things about. I think I'm going to turn out to make 4 closely connected points here about how this terminology is in fact used. First, la virtù is said to be the name of the quality, or rather it's always a set of qualities, by means of which it is possible for a political leader, at least in part, to control and hence to offset the power of fortuna, as he calls it, the power of luck, good luck or ill luck in political affairs. I should say, and this I'm sure you'll know, Machiavelli believes that you could never get rid of the element of luck in political leadership. So, as he frequently implies, show me a successful political leader and I will show you someone who has been extremely lucky. I mean, what if John Smith had not had a heart attack? We would never have heard of Tony Blair. Wow. I mean, these people are fortunate. They're successful only because they're fortunate. But, of course, although there therefore cannot be a science of politics, I mean, that would be a grotesque mistake, according to Machiavelli. There couldn't be a science of politics because that would forget the role of luck in politics, which is ex hypothesi incalculable, but of great importance. Nevertheless, he says it's a great mistake of some ancient thinkers, and he cites Plutarch, to suppose that in politics everything is luck. For Machiavelli, much of it is judgment, and the relationship between luck and judgment is really one of the major themes of the book. Now, the quality that you have to possess if you're going to be able in any way to control the role of luck is virtù. And so one of the oppositions in the book is always between la virtù and la fortuna, fortuna virtù. That comes out most explicitly in chapter 24, this concluding chapter on how the political leaders of Italy have, in his own time, so commonly lost their states, lost their principalities. And Machiavelli says they blame fortuna. They say this has been due to tremendous ill luck. But he says, and I quote, all these quotations are my own translations, by the way. My translations are very literal. Where one's defenses are based upon one's own virtù, the capacity of ill fortune to take away one's power is limited. So although they blame what they regard as their ill luck, they ought not to do so. Why not? Because in fact, they're lacking in virtù. If they had this quality, it would have enabled them to offset, to control, to some degree, ill fortune. Now, there's the first claim. The second is a very closely associated claim, which is that la virtù is also the name of the set of qualities which enable you. This is a kind of very useful, I think, American idiom which captures very well what Machiavelli is saying. You can get lucky. It's possible to get lucky. You shouldn't think of fortuna as the same as providence. It's not inexorable. It's possible in certain ways to ally with and to control fortune. And if you ask, well, by what means is it possible? The answer is, again, la virtù. And this is the point that's brought out in chapter 6, which is in apposition to chapter 7, where the first discusses how you can seize and hold power by this quality of virtus, and the second discusses how you can do the same by means of fortune. So now these two qualities are being put in apposition in the organization of the first part of the book. Now, in chapter 6, Machiavelli introduces another notion here which is connected with fortune. He says sometimes, I'm quoting, you may have the good fortune to encounter the right occasion. The Italian word is occasione, the right, we would have to say, moment of opportunity to act. And he says, if you're not blessed with having the right opportunity to act, if you don't have that kind of fortune, and that is a piece of good luck, having occasione, having the right moment to act, then you're never going to succeed as a political leader at all. So to that degree, fortune is inexorable and present. But what it is to be a leader of virtù is to seize opportunities. That's the quality that enables you to seize opportunities. So in chapter 6, he follows this thought out with the discussion of the leaders, the three leaders whom he regards as having had the greatest virtù in the history of political leadership: Moses, Cyrus, Romulus. Well, Moses, he says, he cheated because God told him what to do, so that really doesn't count. His favorite is Romulus. But of all of them, he says, and I quote, if their lives and actions are examined, it will be seen that they received from Fortuna nothing but occasione, nothing but the right circumstances in which to act. He agrees, without having had that particular occasion, their virtù would have been expended to no effect, but because they had such great virtù, no opportunity was wasted. And that was what made them successful political leaders. They grasped the opportunity, and the quality that enabled them to do so was virtù. Now, that brings me to the third of these 4 points I'm trying to make about this concept, which is also brought out in chapter 6. Because, he says, political leaders with these qualities of virtù are always able to seize opportunities, they are in turn able, and now comes a formula which echoes all through the book. They are able, the Italian says, mantenere lo stato. They're able to maintain their state. So virtù is the name of the quality that enables you to maintain your state. Maintain your state, mantenere lo stato, what does that mean? Lo stato in Machiavelli is, I think, quite deeply ambiguous. Of course, in modern Italian, lo stato just means the state. And that notion is not absent in Machiavelli, I've come to think. But fundamentally what he means by being able to mantenere lo stato is to maintain your state, i.e. as a ruler, as a political leader. That's to say, to maintain your standing, your status as a political leader. What you want to avoid is what the French at this time were already calling a coup d'etat. That's to say, any strike against the état, meaning your état, your state, your condition or standing as a ruler. But if you're going to maintain your position, then obviously what you've in fact got to maintain is the jurisdictions and territories that have been given into your charge. And that, of course, brings out the other notion of lo Stato. That sounds very like the state. And it's true that if you're going to maintain your state, il suo Stato, you have to maintain the state, lo Stato, the institutions, the jurisdictions of the state. And indeed, the very first sentence of the whole book uses this notion of state in for the age, a remarkably abstract way, because he says, all the states that there have been tutti gli stati, all the states there have either been principalities or republics. So notice the notion of a state is something that could be either a principality or a republic. So it's a rather abstract notion of some set of institutions which could take different constitutional forms. So what Machiavelli wants to say is, all right, that's your task. You've got to be able to maintain your state, avoid a coup d'etat, and the quality that enables you to do that is this quality, la virtù. So he ends chapter 6 by talking about a not celebrated prince, but I think actually the real hero of the book, and he's called Hero. So Machiavelli would have noticed that. Chapter 6 ends by discussing Hero of Syracuse, and I quote, "From being an ordinary private citizen, he became the sole ruler of Syracuse. It is true that he enjoyed a fine opportunity, occasione, but apart from that, his success owed nothing to fortuna, but everything to the fact that he was a man of outstanding virtù, and as a result, although he found it difficult to acquire power, he had no trouble in managing mantenere lo Stato." Why? Because he was of outstanding virtù. Now, Machiavelli notes in chapter 19 that this point, which is really the core of the book, how you maintain your state, could be put another way round. What have you got to be absolutely sure you don't do if you're going to avoid a coup d'etat, if you're going to maintain your state? And he says there are two things you must avoid like a shoal, he says. I mean, the idea here, of course, being you're steering the ship of state, don't steer it into the shoals. Now, what are these shoals? There are two things that must be avoided at all costs. One is being hated and the other is being despised. And he illustrates the point in chapter 19 with a brief history of the late emperors of Rome. Antoninus was hated, so he quite soon lost his state. Pertinax and Alexander were despised, so they quite soon lost their state. Commodus was hated and despised, so he maintained his state for a very short time. By contrast, neither Marcus Aurelius nor Septimius Severus, Machiavelli's two favorite political leaders of antiquity, were ever hated or despised, although, of course, Severus, as his name implies, was very greatly feared. He was feared but not hated, and that is, of course, part of the trick. And as a result, both of them managed, without any difficulty, mantenere lo Stato, to maintain their state. And if you ask why this is so, he says, they both possessed extraordinaria virtù, extraordinary virtù. Now, it's true that Machiavelli, throughout this book, is at least as much concerned with how you can get power as with how you can manage to maintain it, mantenere lo Stato. But, and of course, chapters 1 to 11 are largely about getting power as well as holding on to it. But notice that you can get power in all sorts of ways. You can get power because you may inherit it. I mean, it may be a hereditary principality. You can get power because it may be that you're elected into this particular kind of principality. For example, the papacy. It's just happened, hasn't it? That's an elected principality, so that's another way you can come to power. You can also come to power by mere good fortune. The only way that you can maintain power, however, there's just one way, is by virtù. Let me turn to the fourth and final point that I think Machiavelli wants us to understand about this notion of virtù. But to appreciate this final point, you have to see that we are in the high Renaissance here. We're at the beginning of the 16th century, and we are in a scale of political values very foreign to us in a democratic society. And Machiavelli wants to say this goal, which is the fundamental goal of princes, being able to mantenere lo Stato, is not the main goal of the prince. It's the fundamental one. If you can't manage to hold on to the apparatus of power, then you're over. There's nothing to say to you. But it isn't the goal you should be setting yourself. The goal you should be setting yourself, and here we have the high Renaissance speaking, is glory, la gloria. What you have to do as a prince is to do great things, grande cose. You've got to do great things. Of mind are amazing, aren't they? And, you know, they're glorious figures. They bring the house down. Now, this discussion of glory is also very much Machiavelli's theme in chapter 19, when he discusses Severus and Marcus Aurelius, because he says both were able not merely to remain in power, but to attain so much glory that they died venerated by all. Okay, there it is, as far as I can see. That's to understand this pivotal notion in the book, that if you wish to attain glory, if you wish to maintain your state, if you wish to overcome and control fortuna, the answer in every case is the same. You need this quality of virtù. So there it is. Well, you might say, well, that's extremely unhelpful, because what is this quality, or this set of qualities? We want a list, don't we? I mean, so far I've just given you the heuristics of it, but you want to know, yeah, but what is this thing? Virtù, la virtù, les vertus. What does it? Right. Now, Machiavelli is writing his book in a culture and at a time when there was a considerable literature devoted to exactly that question. And I now want to talk for a moment about this literature and Machiavelli's relationship to it. When I say a literature of advice book to princes, I'm thinking of a number of Italian texts, Latin texts of the last part of the 15th century. Giovanni Pontano writes a book called De Principe. Bartolomeo Sacchi writes a book called De Principe. Francesco Patrizi writes a book called De Rege, concerning the king. So notice that Machiavelli, Il Principe, that's gone into the Italian from the Latin, and that's a very important moment in Italian literature. The move from Latin to Italian for a learned treatise like this one is the move made by Machiavelli. But all these writers, De Principe, are writing about the quality that they call virtus. Now, they completely agree with what is said in the next generation by Machiavelli, that virtus is the name of the quality that brings you glory. As Pontano says, and I'm translating, virtus alone is the source of glory. But these writers also want you to have a list. They want you to have a list of what the qualities are that go to make up the virtus of the prince. And the account is very clear, and they all agree. There's one fundamental quality that you have to have, and it is the political virtue, and it is justice. I quote Sacchi: "A society will remain firm only if it is governed with justice. If justice is neglected, it will die. Justice is the foundation of a prince's perpetual acclaim and glory." To which Pontano adds, quoting Cicero, I quote again, "The essential element in justice consists in fides," that's to say faith, faith, meaning keeping your promises, never breaking your word. Nothing, I'm quoting again, is more despicable than failing to keep your word. The watchword, and here he is quoting Cicero again, must be fides sit servanda. Good faith must always be served, must always be kept. That is actually a maxim of the Roman law that they're citing, but also it's to be found in Cicero. The foundation of justice is fides, keeping your word. Fides sit servanda. That must, above all, be upheld. So there's one classical thought, essentially a Ciceronian thought. But their classicism is broader than that, and as Peter Stacey, in a major recent book on the classical origins of Renaissance theory of principalities, brings out, we should cite here not just Cicero but Seneca. Seneca, the tutor to Nero, bad luck that was, wrote two treatises of advice for princes, one of which is called the De Beneficiis, in which he is talking essentially about the giving and receiving of benefits, and thus about the virtue of liberality in princes, generosity, liberality. And so there is one of the two of what he calls the princely virtues. The other princely virtue is the subject of his incomplete treatise, which he addressed to Nero, which is called De Clementia, concerning clemency. Now, what liberality and clemency have in common, which makes them specifically princely virtues, notice, is that they go beyond justice. Being generous or being liberal is more than being just. Being clement is more than being just. And of course, princes have a prerogative of clemency. They can cancel the law and insert mercy instead. So these are the special features of princely morality. So you could summarize by saying that the standard classical humanist view current in Machiavelli's society is that there are three princely virtues, and that they are justice and generosity and clemency. Now, if we turn back to what I called the pivot of the book, chapter 15, what we see is that Machiavelli is engaging with exactly this tradition of thought. And he says, and I'm quoting chapter 15, "I am well aware that many people have written about this subject of princely virtue already." Clear reference to exactly the literature I've just cited. And he goes on, "I fear," he doesn't of course mean that at all, "I fear that I may be thought presumptuous, for what I have to say departs from the precepts offered by these other writers on this subject." And then the Italian says, "massime." It departs massively from what these people have been saying. And then he proceeds. It's this famous sequence of chapters from chapter 15. The next chapter, chapter 16, is called De Liberalitate, concerning liberality. The next chapter after that is called De Crudelitate et Pietoso, concerning cruelty and clemency. And then chapter 18 is on fides, the keeping of your word, the foundation of justice. So having introduced the idea that he's going to depart massively from what is normally said, he alerts you to the literature that he's talking about by singling out these three particular qualities. So the question is, what is this massive departure? Because that's to get inside the structure of the book, I would submit. And to understand the title of this lecture, How Machiavellian Was Machiavelli, we need to focus on these chapters. Well, I think myself that these chapters could be said to have a kind of essential answer to that question, which is that all the elements of princely virtue as commonly understood in classical and Renaissance humanism are treated by Machiavelli purely instrumentally. By which I mean that the fundamental argument, I think, is that here are these qualities, and that you should follow them insofar as they're helpful to your basic task, which you remember is mantenere lo Stato, and you should not follow them if they get in the way of that task. So for Machiavelli, the key question in political morality is always framed consequentially. So he's not really interested in the idea of a virtue, that's to say, a quality that absolutely forbids you to do certain things. For him, there is no such quality, because the consequentialism is such that in respect of any given action, you must always ask, will this action, which is liberal or which is clement or which is just, help me to maintain my state? If it will, do it. If it won't, don't.
Very strange. The music appears to have frozen. Well, we'll turn that off so that doesn't pop up again. We may have a guest tonight. This may be interesting. Let's see if we're actually connected here. It says that I've got a good connection on OBS. YouTube seems to be connected. Okay. Well, hopefully it holds through. Would be nice if I had a guest tonight. I am dead tired. Well. Hello, everyone. How are we all tonight? Here, let's read the comments a little bit. A little morbidly curious. Let's see. They tell you never to read comments. I live for this stuff. This is so funny to me. Let's take a look. Or just interesting. It's just interesting. Nobody talks about me in real life. Just while I wait to find out if I do in fact have company tonight. Let's look. President Sunday is so busy trying to think of smug, condescending remarks that he seems to have failed to listen to most of the actual debate. The only other time I've seen him is when he defended Professor Flowers Tavash, where he thought it came off as well-meaning but misguided. However, all I can see is the worst kind of, well, actually, pseudo-intellectual who sees his peers as objects to dunk on for his own ego. Don't be ridiculous. Rose Riss is not my peer. It's the kind of nerd other nerds look down on. It's mean. What else have we got? PS has some massive sports fan. I could have done that way better. Energy paired with a lot of pseudo-intellectualism. I think I say in the video I admit that I probably would have done terribly, but I just would have avoided the encounter. It's kind of the point. What else have we got? Come on, give me something good here. President Sunday's talking style and voice just sounds like a person who likes to appear more intelligent than he is. This is true. I absolutely sound that way. President Sunday has always made horrible arguments, and it's worse. He talks like he's some kind of genius. Always felt he's bad faith, but I could be wrong. Edit got further into the video, and I don't think he's bad faith. He just doesn't know anything. This is probably the most accurate one so far. I don't know why I'm shocked that people listen to President Sunday. Me too. That makes two of us. I do not have a history of being wrong. What's that all about? Damn. Damn. I am such a condescending jerk, aren't I? Well, that's on brand. So, works for me. You coming in, Brooks? Cool. All right. I'm going to call in Brooks, and we're going to do some rose picking. Sounds good. Someone's reading bedtime stories, and then we will begin. Let's read some more of these. I'm enjoying this. Ah. On the entire genocide not requiring intent thing, PS's example of genocide being done for industrial interest doesn't hold up, because there's such a thing as malicious or deranged indifference. What? If you take a series of actions that you know will do great harm. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. It's still indifference. Rose Riss said you needed intent. That was the essence of Rose Riss's mistake throughout that entire debate. He was their entire strategy, him and Mouthy Infidel, their entire strategy was to try and argue that the Great Replacement wasn't real because it wasn't intentional, when they really should have been arguing that the Great Replacement, first of all, wasn't a Great Replacement. There is no replacement taking hold or occurring. There's not. There's demographic change, but that's not a replacement. I mean, for God's sake, as a bare like preparatory measure, they could have just watched Sean's video on the thing. It's breaks it down fairly clearly. Like, trends don't just run indefinitely into the future, for one. Secondly, a replacement would imply that the white population is disappearing, or is actually being supplanted, as in, like, it's being removed from the place, and a non-white population is being put in. That's what a replacement is. That's not what's taking place. And the data seems to show that most of the immigration, as of, I think, 2014, maybe 2016, maybe, I think it's 2014, as of 2014, because this is prior to Brexit, as of 2014, was from within the EU. There is a sizable population coming from Pakistan, but it's not that sizable. It's certainly not replacing the white British population, and a good portion of that EU a good portion of that immigration is Poles. Where are these comments coming from? This is just a Rose Wrists video. We're gonna have Brooks in soon. We're gonna go over this. I was gonna do it by myself, but I'm dead tired, so if Brooks wants to come on, that's brilliant. You're not gonna be relying on me to catch everything. He's more of a night owl than I am. President Sunday sounds like a Demon Mama clone. How the hell? Rose Wrist sounds more like Demon Mama than I do. How do you manage that one? Guy simps to sound like Vosh, and as the... I've heard that a few times. It's like, if you have a deep voice, you're immediately like Vosh. Don't be ridiculous. I don't try to sound like Vosh. Vosh tries very hard to sound like me. There's a that's the distinction. Even before he knew I existed. Here, let's see. Sunday is a good faith dude. Talk to him. Factually and true based on tons of examples. I'd love to hear them. It's interesting, actually. The when this was originally on stream, I actually interacted with him briefly because I came in at the end. He was, for whatever reason, discussing the contents of our DMs with each other, which, by the way, and because he did this, I have no compunctions whatsoever about sharing those myself. Early on, when it's more amicable, prior to him actually watching my review, I noted, like, hey, it looked like you guys didn't have a lot of time to repair. Like, it's kind of by the skin of your teeth. It's like, yeah, 4 days. So I was right. They didn't prepare. This was a target of opportunity. It was a big name that popped up. It's like, ooh, Mouthy. We get to debate Mark Collette. We're going to be famous. It's always a red flag when the person has a full bookcase behind them, as if to demonstrate that this content creator is a big brain only to be able to make a substantive critique. President Sunday is also the guy who defended Professor Flowers by calling her idiotic, too idiotic, with one O, to understand the points she was making when she debated Vosh. Yes, I did. I'm glad that Carson here was able to catch on to the fact that I actually bought the contents of this bookshelf just for my YouTube channel. Thousands and thousands of dollars of paper just all at once, just to launch a 5K sub YouTube channel. I go all in. Also a massive hypocrite by accusing Rose of smugness when he himself is the epitome of smugness. I didn't accuse Rose of smugness. I accused him of appearing smug in a debate with a right-winger where that's going to be used against his position. Crucial difference. Only one book allowed the very hungry caterpillar. Yes, this is true. Hey, no comments on my ridiculously high stress-induced hairline. Good God. I'm hoping that grows back. It was like all of a sudden the last couple of months, I had like a crazy few months, just hyper stressed out from that, from what happened then. That's more of a Hawes audience thing, I think. Five minutes in, I already know President Sunday is winging this review. Of course I'm winging the review. This thing was scripted. I don't have time for that. If I'm going to script something, it's going to be something interesting. Oh, still waiting on Brooks. I don't know. See if I switch it to new. We get better stuff. I don't understand this. Is it a there ain't enough room in this town for the both of us kind of thing? That's exactly what it is. Sorry, I'm not reading the comments because I'm like obsessively reading people watching me. I'm just killing time until Brooks shows up. It's also keeping me awake. I took allergy medication. It's people are mean. That's okay. I can be mean. I'm gonna try not to be tonight. I'm gonna try to be nice. I'm gonna try to be nice to the end of being mean. See, that's what some people don't get. Being nice is not the same thing as being kind. Sometimes you're very generous so that your interlocutor or your target or whatever has nowhere to hide. Or nothing to hide behind, rather. I'm on President Sunday's side on this one. Yes. Yes, you are on the side of the light. Well done. All three of them. There's 3 videos? I guess there's the, he divided it up, so. Well, thank you, Francesco. What is this? The golden age of Islam is overrated. It seems like I remember a Muslim came up with algebra, but other than that, there wasn't much going on. That's dumb. People are really butthurt that I yelled at Vosh about the Professor Flowers thing. Damn. Vosh is a way better sport about it. Took me a second to realize when Rose was saying, well, what am I looking at, referring to the document he named and was looking at. He was making... No. Okay, we're going to come to this eventually. I know Rose knew what he was looking at. Here was the mistake. Rose was challenged that what he was looking at wasn't the actual document, and he had to have Mouthy search for it. It was kind of obvious, because they had that rolling for a little while, and he wasn't confident enough to say, like, no, actually, Mark, you're incorrect. This is the paper. Sorry, you're wrong. It was retracted, and then it was, it was withheld, and then it was published again following a backlash. So this is actually it. You're wrong. He didn't say that. They had to find that information, which is why Mouthy is the one who brings that up later on. That's the issue. It's not that he didn't know what he was looking at. It's that he didn't know what he was looking at enough. He needed to know the history of it. He needed to know about it. He didn't know about that. He didn't know. They had no reply as far as I could see from my coverage. Maybe they cover it after I finished, but it was too late by that point. They had no reply to the rape gang thing. They had, or the grooming gang thing. They had no, like, there was just, they were missing crucial points. So at the end of it, all they had was, yeah, the great replacement is happening. Everything you're talking about is true, except it's not deliberate, and maybe GDP. And then sort of chuckling to themselves when Mark's bringing up this other stuff. Now, Mark looked bad too, because Mark is a very stupid man. But they looked terrible. They looked terrible, like they weren't taking it seriously. Yeah, the Demon Mama Vosh clone thing is strange. I'm assuming it's just because my voice maybe sounds a bit similar in a certain register, but I don't even see that, to be honest. Oh yeah, see, look at this. The Twitter DM sounds like a man who learned big words and wants to use them, but doesn't know how to. Yeah. So he shares DMs in here. That's... Keeping in mind, by this point, I had not even mentioned DMs, so that's actually kind of a gross thing to do. Well, since you shot first, Rose, let's pull this thing up. God, Twitter is such a bad interface. Yeah, we'll just go over the whole thing. Screw it. He's gonna read off if he's gonna read off DMs, I'm gonna show those DMs myself. That's how that works. That seems more than fair to me. Alright, let's make sure that's okay. Okay, that's ready to go. Still waiting on Brooks. Yeah, we're still waiting on Brooks. Okay. It's a long story you're reading this late at night. Better be a good one. Like, here's the thing. Mark Collette is off of YouTube. He's almost certainly off of Twitch. I believe so is what's that thing they were that show they were on with what's her face. They literally did nothing but boost these guys' profile here. That's all they did. It's they boost their profile. They gave them an easy win. Nobody takes any of these guys seriously except for when they engage with people like this. Oh, my background is so cool. I love this. I think this was a smart move. It cost me nothing. Oh, I wish I still had. I like what I do now, where I have kind of like the brass frame around my webcam. I was doing like this weird kind of that stained glass filter thing again for a bit, just because I was experimenting with it. It looks too Voshy, like it's got that pink color. I don't like it. Like, kind of has the palette of the Vosh fountain. I wasn't going for that. I was going for like the color palette of like the clouds I used to have on my on the background of my YouTube channel. It's work in progress, but I love these backgrounds because it blends in with the bookshelf, so it's like gives the impression of like a there's actual design behind the thing. At least I think so. Rosewrist is a grifter in all caps. I don't know if I actually say that. I mean, I think he is. I watched about 20 minutes of the in fact, I'm kind of wondering, do we want to watch this edited one or do we want to watch the actual live stream? I kind of want to watch the actual live stream. I just feel like there might be a lot of bloat there. Sunday, are you a grad student? No, I'm not. I had aspirations to be, but professors disagreed. So I remain uncorrupted. Perversely, I hit my Patreon goals this morning. So I am now paid a living wage to do this, to do research and to like comment upon and write essays and things like that in my field, which is something that a lot of grad students are not. So Pesto Bismol Vosh sponsor win. What do you mean Pepto Bismol? Pesto Bismol just sounds horrific. You can come to a YouTube show if you're banned from YouTube? Yeah, absolutely. YouTube's not like Twitch. Twitch is draconic about how they will keep people from flouting their bans. They'll ban almost anybody who platforms someone who's banned. It is a pretty sweet deal. I'm very lucky. Granted, it took a lot of work and a lot of sweat and a lot of psychological hits to do. This is not easy. It really isn't. At least not for me. Maybe it comes naturally to some people. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go switch into a cooler sweater. It's actually quite warm tonight. I was kind of surprised. One moment. All right. All right, all right. Oh, I wasn't even muted, was I? Oh, it's annoying. The Be Right Back plate has its own audio, so I need to watch that. I guess in the meantime, we can check out this. Somebody else started a conversation with him after the fact. Then we'll wait for Brooks to come back and we'll go over that. I hate this blue. I'm not, no offense to him. Like it's a nice. It's not a terrible design. This blue just stresses me out. The lo-fi's okay though.
The weekend story. Yeah. I very rarely get
I see why there was a rain sound. The guy's soaked.
like angry and like really irritated people. But I did this weekend, okay?
Oh yeah? Was it at me?
I'll let you guys know why. But yeah.
I hope it's at me. I hope he's mad at me. That's gonna be so cool. Nobody responds to me.
No.
Somebody actually getting mad? Oh,
let's
brilliant.
go. Good morning. Yo, hello. Samantha. Who is Samantha? Joe's the data mail streamer with bad gaming skills. Wow, thanks. Shower heroes indeed. Rasmus Padan ställer upp i svenska riksdagen. What do you think about
that? Here, let's see. There must be timestamps. Someone must have timestamped this. Must be timestamps. Come on. Oh, I clicked the wrong video. This is the VOD. Whatever. We'll go over the VOD. I kind of want to see. I want to see this.
How I cut ties with two of my friends. But
oh, that's too bad. Too bad. Sorry to hear about that. What have we got here? He goes over like Easter chocolate at some point. Oh, lovely. That's great. Great. Good slide to go on. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, we have the window again. Oh, so he must. Oh God. All right. I hate seeing super chats on streams that I'm covering. It's like, ugh. It's not for me. I'm all excited. Okay, let's see. How does we start here?
Watching my performance back that I think absolutely are valid.
Okay, here we go. Let's go back a little bit. So I think, right. So he planned his response to this in advance. So there are like time-stamped sections that he goes over, which is interesting. By implication, he took more time planning his reply to my review than he did for the debate. I'm still waiting on Brooks. All right, we'll just get into it. So here's the VOD. He's looking very wet for some reason. I guess he just showered before this. I just find that funny, and I'm not above making fun of him for that, because why the hell not? Are you going to talk to Mr. Girl after your video's coming out at him? We'll see. Depends. If I deem it to be either valuable or not endangering to the integrity of a critique on him for the stuff that he does, then I will do so. But I am not reckless when it comes to stream appearances. I think that it actually doesn't matter that you do a good job. So if I feel like I'm not going to, I'm not going to. I'll leave that to other more competent parties. There's a possibility that's not me. There's a possibility it is, but we'll see. Yeah, exactly. If you go into a debate like that, the grooming gang should make you go, you just activated my trap card, not fumbling around for statistics and debating where you got it. It should be practiced. Yeah, exactly. That's one of my principal issues here, is they didn't know their opponents, they didn't know their audience, and they had data to refute their opponents, but they didn't know their data enough. They didn't know their sources sufficiently to know their history, where it comes from, to know how to reply when somebody says, hey, that's not actually the document's secret. And the reason why Rose's response is, well, what am I looking at? And not, well, no, you're incorrect. Here, let me show you. It says right here, this is the document. What you don't know, Mark, is that this document may indeed have at one point been withheld, as you say, but then it was released again. So you weren't really paying that much attention. So this is the actual document, and you have no credibility. That's what would have happened. It was a rush job. It was a rush job because it was a famous person. They thought they could wing it, basically. They basically did wing it. Like, I'm sure they had like a couple Discord chats, and they prepped talking points for like, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be easy. We got them. Got this in the bag. They can't prove that the Great Replacement is an intentional replacement. But that's not the point. That doesn't matter. In every debate I've seen him in, he takes their point and asks them to re-argue their point without using the point they just used. Also, he seems to always go to the meta convo when pressed. What are we talking about? Oh, Mr. Girl, yeah, I don't... Mr. Girl's garbage. He actually is. He doesn't know anything. Mr. Girl is very good at abusing his interlocutors. He's not very good at debating, actually. You see, he loses his cool very fast. Still waiting on Brooks. Alright. Well, we're going to get into this. Okay, so this is Rose Wrist's response to my review of his debate. He was not happy with it. You never see someone practicing a debate. Well, you don't practice a debate. What you do is you try your best to predict. You research your opponent. You try to predict what their points will be, and then you assemble like a dossier, basically, of replies and citations to those things. And then you try to anticipate, well, what will the response be to that reply, and then you set that up. How does one practice a debate besides knowing your shit? Indeed. Well, knowing your shit is one way to do it. Another way is just to practice steamrolling your opponent rhetorically. That's a thing you can do. You can try and batter around your opponent psychologically and make them appear weak, so it doesn't matter if they're right. That's something Vosh does. Vosh does very well. The problem here is they picked a toxic, dangerous interlocutor, where there are actually stakes for giving him a free win on these issues. And they didn't do either. What's up, President Sunday? Have you managed to muster out an interesting thought tonight? Not yet, but I front-loaded it with a Quentin Skinner lecture, so it's augmented. It's been like 25 minutes. Brooks, you coming? All right. Well, I'll get started. We don't need Brooks for the whole thing. Let's go.
Mark Collett was just entirely going to be blood sporting this thing.
Oh my God. Okay. This is I don't want to miss that part. So let's go back a little bit. Let's start at about 44 minutes. We'll see if that's a good place. Here we go. Okay. All right. So just because I'm going to clip this afterwards, this is Rose Rist's response to my review of his disastrous debate with Mark Collett, which he did with Mouthy Infidel as his debate partner, as Rose Rist's debate partner, not Mark Collett's. I actually forget the name of Mark Collett's debate partner, but it doesn't particularly matter. She was barely in it. It was bad, and I was highly critical, and Rose Rist did not like that. He was most displeased with my review, and we're going to watch what his grievances were, and we're going to reply to them. So, let's go. Come on, Rose, talk.
Okay, I think we're good now. All right. Will Allen. Go. Why are you here? I'm happy to always join chat in the best moments. Okay. Look, we're starting now. Have fun editing this, by the way, Zoe. Good luck. I'm writing my... the fuck up, Will. All right. Let's close the Easter eggs.
Laura Towler, thank you, Katsumi. That was Mark Collett's debate partner.
Okay. President Sunday.
Hi, that's me.
How do you say? Isn't that something you say? You're up to bat? Isn't that? I think that's something people say, right?
I'm up to bat.
Great.
I think you're up to bat.
Right. Fuck. I've watched this. His review is 2 hours and 35 minutes. I've watched it twice. Once taking notes, once without taking notes. And man, this is gonna be painful. So I'm not gonna be going through the entire thing. Obviously not. That shit would take literally ages. But I have a wide range of different timestamps that I can go through.
A wide range of different timestamps.
But yeah, that's gonna be the purpose of this. So, How do I want to order this? Let's find out. Okay. All right. Now I think we're good.
All right, here we go. Get ready for the thunder.
Hold on. How's the audio levels?
I'm sure they're great. They're great, Rose.
Very quiet.
Great, Rose. Just do it. Come on. He has no opening statement. They have nothing prepared. They're gonna wing this. They're winging this.
I'm gonna lose my mind. Say something. Sunday. Speak.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Okay, then I'll
You're welcome.
speak for longer. But if
you bring
on the cake for them, they don't care.
Speak.
Prepared for it. Yeah. That's what we're looking at here.
Okay, I think this is good enough. All right, whatever. Let's go. Fuck, I closed the tab. I'm so dumb. Okay. Cool. All right, it's time.
It is time. It is time.
Last week, me and Mouthy Infidel had a debate on the Great Replacement and on demographic change with Mark Collett and Laura Towler. And after this debate, a lot of people were happy with it. Some people weren't very happy.
Who was happy with
one
it?
of the people that weren't happy from it. Okay, fucking restart the segment. Zoe, don't use this, please. I beg. Back to it again.
I know it is from really ugh.
Last week, I debated with Mouth Infidel, Mark Collett, and Laura Towler on the Great Replacement and on whether or not we should preserve racial demographics. And after having the debate, I got sent this video from President Sunday. Rose Wrist and Mouthy Infidel's grossly irresponsible debate with Mark Collett. It's a 2-hour, 35-minute review. It doesn't go over the entire debate, only a segment, but a pretty big segment of it.
Bastard had that screen up and he didn't even do a bookshelf analysis. Unbelievable.
And I have watched this twice, once on my own and once while taking notes. And I have a lot of big issues with this review and the way it was done and what it says about potentially motivations and stuff going into it that I'm going to talk about right now in this video over here. So before I begin, I do want to say that there are absolutely valid things to say about the debate performance and critiques to be given. So I think the 4 main places where I think we should have done better in this debate. Now, keep in mind, I still think we did well. I still think we won that debate. But here are 4 things that I nevertheless think we should have done better on. Number 1, we didn't get
Who thinks you won the debate and why? Please mention in the comments. I'd really love to see if anybody does.
to interrogate them on their proposed solutions to the problems that they are identifying or claim to identify, and then kind of interrogating them on that and what that would entail. Also, same thing for a lot of the concepts that were kind of played fast and loose in the debate. We didn't get to do that. I think that would have been a good thing to do.
Okay, so the concepts include the Great Replacement itself, which they didn't actually interrogate. In fact, I think in his conversation with the person afterwards, he went so far as to insist that no, demographic change is basically real, which is why they weren't pushing back on that. They had to challenge the facts of the matter, which to Mouthy Infidel and Rose Wrist concerned the intent behind the people facilitating that demographic change, which is a mistake because a Great Replacement is not taking place. There is demographic change, as there is everywhere, but it's not a replacement. There are trends towards the increase of some demographics and not towards the relative, or I guess, the equivalent increase in others. But that's not going to go into perpetuity. That changes as these demographics become more established, as these demographics are represented by people who are like 2nd and 3rd generation down the line. Like there are a whole, like there are myriad things that account for this. Like trends don't just perpetually go on. White people aren't going to disappear from the UK, for example. This is that was a major issue that I had with that debate that I didn't go into much detail in my review, as a matter of fact. But conceptually, that's like a major element that they missed on. And as far as interrogating their solutions, it doesn't matter because they don't need to have solutions in order to sell the idea that this is a problem, which is really what they're selling, which is the big issue with appearing to be smug and indifferent to things like the grooming gag talking point, because it means that if there is actually a real problem, you couldn't trust someone like Rose Wrist or Mouthy Infidel to respond appropriately to it. Now, there isn't one. There is something going on, but it's not as being described that way, which would... It's the description itself. It's that particular characterization that leads to the kinds of solutions where the word solution in the name should be setting up massive red flags. They didn't interrogate that. They actually basically... They basically allowed that as a factual thing that just needed to be recontextualized, referring to the Great Replacement talking point. So, I mean, I think they ultimately did win the debate because they managed to catch Mark out on that report. That was luck. That was luck, because it's distinctly possible. It's distinctly possible that they did not find that data in time. They were scrounging for it. They were scrounging for it, which is why they didn't have it to go. So, I mean, thank God Mark was that stupid. But, like, here's the thing. If they... The report as such didn't even save them. What saved them by the use of the report was that Mark Collette managed to undercut his own credibility in that conversation because of that mistake. But it was so drawn out, his interlocutors didn't look much the better. So all of it was just mistrusted. And people already have, like the audience of that channel, of Mark Collette, etc., already have, even if they distrust Mark, because you'll see this a lot of the time, they'll be like, oh, well, so-and-so, you know, kind of sucks. They're kind of a lib, or like a light conservative or whatever. But they're fighting, they're going against big Vosh orbiters, or Destiny orbiters, or whatever. So we'll cheerlead them this time, because even if they're stupid and they're not getting at the truth of the matter and how bad it really is, and they aren't like smart hardliners, they're on our side in this.
Number two, we should have been more assertive from the get-go. We didn't get the memo that Mark Collett was just entirely going to be blood sporting this thing from the very beginning. So we were a bit too polite and a bit too passive towards the beginning.
You thought Mark Collette wasn't going to be blood sporting this. You thought Mark Collette, the neo-Nazi, wasn't going to be blood sporting this. This is how you preface your response to a critique that you were underprepared. Just let that sit for a second. They were expecting a polite meeting of the minds with Mark Collette. That's what this was.
Towards the end, we picked it up a bit more, but in the beginning, we could have definitely used some more assertiveness there. That's point number two. Point number three, there's a point about civilizational history that I wish I would have, brought up then, that I didn't think to do for whatever reason. When Mark makes the oversimplistic historical analysis that, oh, Europe has always created things and other countries have always not created things and other places have always not created things, and it just so happens that, people are white here in Europe and non-white in other places. Obviously, number one, this isn't true. Even from his analysis, there were plenty of, a lot of the great European civilizations that we would talk about historically, and I think he might have even mentioned, like, ancient Rome or Greece. These were far from being, racially homogenous societies. That's number one. But also number two, that's not...
The issue is that they're racially homogenous. The issue is whether or not they are white. That's going to be Mark Collette's point. I bring up some of these cases in my critique. I have a suspicion he got it from there, maybe. But the reason why this wasn't brought up is because he didn't know enough to bring it up. And the reason why they weren't assertive is because if you're assertive and you don't know what you're talking about, if you haven't adequately prepared, if you don't have like a holistic knowledge of the material you're talking about, and God forbid your opponent does, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. Because now you've given your opponent permission to be as cruel and belligerent as possible, because you've lost all credibility. You basically depersoned yourself in the debate. And that's why they weren't assertive. Incidentally, that's why, again, they weren't assertive with the document that Rose Rist brought up when Mark said this has been this was actually never released. He's like, well, what am I looking at? He was waiting for an answer. He truly was waiting for an answer. He didn't know. He knew what he thought. He knew what he was certain of when he brought up the document. But when Mark said, well, that wasn't released, so you're incorrect. Shoot. It took a long time for Mouthy to actually pull up the history of that document afterwards. You could see them like going back and forth. If they had that information going in, which they needed to, there wouldn't have been a delay. If they were expecting politeness, that shows a lack of preparation at best and a lack of basic sense at worst. I think it's both. I think they lacked basic sense and basic preparation. All they knew, I'm guessing, was that Mark Collette was the racist oven chips guy or whatever. Is that what they called them in the UK? Oven chips? It was oven French fries. And that he'd be an idiot, so he'd be easy to push back on, which he wasn't. And he's not. These people do this for a living. Mark Collette is a household name because he is very, very good at aggravating people and very, very good at, shall we say, he does the Sargon thing. Like, he's very good at sort of holding character under pressure, right? Like, he doesn't waver. I hate to say this, but they are very fortunate that they didn't debate politically provoked's former interlocutor Andrew Wilson, aka BPF. He would have eaten them alive. Anyways. See, what's frustrating is the obvious answer here is they shouldn't have done the debate. They should have either left it to somebody else or they should have insisted on a later time. And if they couldn't get that, they shouldn't have done it. The reason why they did it is because it was an opportunity. It's an opportunity. It's again, and I point this out at the beginning of my review, and Rose is going to use this as like something to show that I was already poisoned against them. Poisoned against them compared to Mark Collette? Absolutely not. It's immaterial. I think my review was actually quite fair. But one thing I point out is that one of the things that, as an explanation for why on earth are they having this debate in the first place, one of the things that Rose Riss did fairly early in his career is he posted a debate between him and Alt Hype. Except Alt Hype wasn't there. Who they got was Alt Hype's editor. Ryan Falk was even in the comments saying, I don't know what this is. Something to that effect. And then he tried to explain it afterwards. It's like, well, we thought it was just, it's like infrared. He doesn't use this example, but it's like a corporate thing. They're all Alt-Hype, but nobody understands them that way, and they didn't understand them this way. And they didn't change the title of the video later to be the actual name of the person, as far as I can remember. Maybe it's happened since, but it's been a long time. That left a bad taste in my mouth, because that kind of blatant dishonesty for the sake of growth does not portend good things in the future. So. Yeah, exactly, not Justin. You know what he could have said is like, well, if it's not released, how am I reading it? Well, Mark actually had, he suggested it was a different document. It's been a few days, so my memory's a little bit fuzzy on this, but I'm not debating Mark Collette. I'm allowed to do that. That's another thing that's going to come up in this review, is he's going to talk about how I'm sort of like smug and rude and not concerned about optics. I am not representing the side of I'm not representing the anti-racist side in a debate with a high-profile Nazi in front of a large audience. There's a difference. There's a difference between what I'm doing and that. If I was debating Mark Collette myself, first of all, I would have really prepared, and I would still have the fear of God in me going in, because there are stakes, which you have to be. This was gross overconfidence. I wonder if Rose responds to they did the debate because fame. He might. I can't remember. I saw a little bit of this, but I haven't watched a ton.
True at all. There was the entirety of the period of the Dark Ages in Europe, right?
Oh, for
and the
fuck's
Golden
sake.
Age of Islam, which absolutely, flies in the face of this narrative that he's painting.
No, it doesn't. First of all, that's terrible. So he has no idea what the hell he's talking about. Again, this is with respect to the point of only European countries or peoples like producing sort of great civilizational goods that have contributed to like the goods of modernity, if you will. He has nothing to point to but cliches. Golden Age of Islam, Dark Ages of Europe. No. Dark Ages of Europe were not a period of no philosophical or scientific advancement. That's patently untrue. For God's sake, like where do you think all the scholastic philosophers came from? We had all that stuff going on. There's a long and detailed and complicated history of political and social and philosophical and scientific development through that time. That's ridiculous. Golden Age of Islam, same deal. There is a lot of philosophy that comes out of Islamic cultures, but you need to be specific. Like, what are you referring to? If you're referring to does he know who Al-Farabi is? Does he know who Ibn Sina is? Like, probably not. I'm willing to bet. Like it's fine to gesture towards the fact that there are like great things that come out of the work of Muslim thinkers in the past, but Rose-Wrist's interlocutors will be aware of the fact that those are cliches because they engage with those constantly. Constantly. Worrying about optics with an out-and-out Nazi should have prompted him to be prepared for Mark's talking points. Yeah. Well, a lot of these talking points actually require like years of preparation to be able to respond to adequately. Like I would have a lot of trouble responding to a lot of these. But you need to be prepared to do so. Which again is why the responsible thing, like I don't think Rose-Wrist is an idiot, but I think that's also what makes him culpable for this. I don't think Rose-Wrist is incapable of doing this debate well. The problem is he wasn't capable of doing that debate within 4 days, with 4 days notice. Same with Mouth the Infidel, I think. But they did it anyways. Like, what they should have done is just refuse the debate.
I wish I would have pointed that out. That's point number 3. Point number 4 is that I think we could have used more mechanistic arguments.
What?
Once again, I didn't think that he would just outright completely discredit and throw out the window anything we cited about him. We did get him to kind of, he didn't explicitly concede to it, but we made it very clear that he wasn't going to listen to anything, report or published or anything like that. He just wanted to rely on his anecdotes. And for that, I think that there was a lot of opportunities for more mechanistic arguments to be put into play. Typically, having evidence in the form of studies is a very good thing, but when the opposition doesn't want to talk about those at all and completely wants to move past that to only the like theoretical and anecdotal side of things, then having more arguments in that domain would have been more helpful because that's where they wanted to take it. So it would have been great if we could have beat them even more in that domain as well.
I have no idea what the hell he's saying here. They needed more anecdotes contrary to his anecdotes, or are they saying they needed more studies? He seems to have gone between both. None of these were the issue. Mark Collette served them a large part of that debate on a silver platter, by just being Mark Collette and being a bloody moron, and again, like not having like a pragmatic spread of documents on his own side that he had justifications for. Mark Collette didn't come into this particularly prepared either. He was doing his usual song and dance. However, it was a song and dance that's been practiced for years by lots of people.
So those are 4 places of critique that I've gotten and that I thought of myself after watching my performance back that I think absolutely are valid. Now, that being said, there were a lot of issues with President Sunday review in my opinion.
Oh, I think we've got Brooks now. Hang on. I think we might have Brooks now. This is very auspicious timing. Okay, so 3 minutes, like 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to assume if I start a voice call, he'll just pick up. I think that should be fine. Going to call, just pick up when you're ready to go. I hope he picks up. I'd like to go to bed tonight before the middle of the day tomorrow. All right, we'll keep going.
And I do want to say that I'm going to be going over this in a chronological capacity. Typically, when you see videos, you will see people having the best, most, most obvious, the strongest arguments to make their case presented at the very beginning of the video. That's not really what we're going to be getting here. We're kind of going to be building up a case throughout the portion of this video to illustrate all of the issues that I found with the video and of President Sunday's way of approaching debates like this one. And when it comes to reviewing and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. This is not a very front-loaded video. It's actually more building up a chronological case throughout as we go on. The main points that I'm going to cover in this video, basically the main points I'm going to try to be making is number one, I will be primarily defending and talking about my performance in this when it comes to going over the timestamps, partly because it's a really long review. It's 2 hours and 35 minutes. Okay,
I have a feeling Brooks might have actually passed out, so we'll, if he comes on later, we'll have him on. But
include timestamps for both things relating to me and Mouthy, this is going to be a really long review. And number two, if Mouthy wants to cover those things, he can do so on his own, but I'm more concerned about covering my things.
Oh, great. We're going to have two of these?
Well.
We're going to have to do two of these. Oh, no.
Previously. Number two, I'm going to be positing that President Sunday had made his mind up going in what he thought the debate was going to be, and then and then as he went along, he framed things in a specific way to appeal to the way that he thought this was going to go going in, and this is apparent in the way he talks about the review, especially in the very early stages.
Okay.
Number three, there were zero concessions or acknowledgments given when President Sunday directly says something that is incorrect, when he says, oh, we didn't bring this up, but then we do, or when he says, oh, they should have done that, and pauses the video to say that, and then as soon as he unpauses, we end up saying the thing we should have said. Zero acknowledgments about any of those things. Even when there's one point in chat where a chatter points something out, that just doesn't happen. I don't think that's a positive thing. Number four, he's actively uncharitable. There's a lot of weird instances where he latches onto something that really isn't significant at all, and then portrays that and frames that in the most uncharitable way possible, where when I watched it for the first time, I just burst out laughing because I'm like, holy shit, how do you even read it, in this way? Number five, I'm going to be making the point that there are certain occasions here where he doesn't follow or track the arguments that are being made, and that leads to his, lack of understanding. And usually this isn't a big deal, but if you can't follow or track a debate and you're going to be really condescending while you do so, now I think we have a problem. Number six, I don't think
Indeed.
he understands certain of the arguments that are being made by me or by Mouthy or by the opposition, or just general things that are happening in the debate, or previous history about things like, for example, the Great Replacement. There's also constant grandstanding and insulting. You will get a taste of that from the clips I've been talking about.
Oh no. I'm sorry, Rose. I didn't realize I hurt your feelings.
But I have not timestamped every time he does like a grandstanding thing, or he levies insults at me and Mouthy, because that would literally take forever. So if you want to look at that, then by all means feel free to watch the review. I'm sure you'll pick up on the same impression that I got. And then finally, President Sunday, for somebody who potters a lot about having a real impact on the things that we talk about, and is one of the major things he impugns us for, or he perceives us as not doing or not caring about during the debate, for somebody who does all that, he really does not care about delivering his debate review feedback in a way that is conducive to that end goal, which leads me to question about how much he really cares about these things.
I wasn't talking to you, Rose. I was talking to the audience. You're a lost cause. I also did not set myself up to be the representative of that position in front of a massive audience with no preparation. I was reviewing your debate. Your complaint is that, oh, well, you weren't as nice to me as I was to Mark Collette. Really? That's the defense of this?
That he belittles other people for allegedly not caring about. Now, with that out of the way, it's time to begin through the timestamps. So I'm gonna put this on my second monitor here, and then we're gonna go.
I almost said that. Isn't the argument President Sunday doesn't understand my argument to self-report? Yeah, I almost said that. Look, I've got some modest capacities here, but I don't think I'm a complete idiot. If I really can't understand the argument that Roseverst is making, then it doesn't actually matter if he's right. Because if I can't understand the argument that he's making, the audience of Mark Collette sure as hell can't. So, I mean, great, you feel good about yourself because on paper afterwards you could connect the dots to say, actually, wait a minute. We were technically correct. It's like, great. Good for you. Good for you. I'm sure at the end of days Odin will reward you with much feasting for being technically correct.
So the first relevant thing I want to talk about happens at 1 minute and 22 seconds. For the most part, I'm going to play the clip and then comment on it. If I think there's context that is required, I'm going to give some information beforehand and then play the clip. But yeah, so we're 1 minute and 20 seconds in. Nothing has been said. I don't even think Mark has started his opening statement yet. And we already get this from President Sunday here.
Increasingly convinced that Mouth the Infidel is a second.
Debating the Great Replacement. Each person can have
I'm increasingly convinced that Mouth the Infidel is a second cloned generation of Ben Shapiro that escaped and is using his powers for good. But
about 5-minute open.
So
look, in my defense, he's using his powers for good, okay? That's a compliment.
once again, we have a dig at Mouthy for, I mean, we haven't even really started. He seems very pessimistic already about what's going on. Then at 8 minutes and 12 seconds.
Look, I don't know if anyone's seen Mouth the Infidel's recent history of interactions. I had reason to be pessimistic.
We have this one, and at this point, we are a quarter of the way through Mouth the Infidel's opening statement.
I know why this is unlisted. This is going to be a train wreck. They're not prepared. They're winging it. Oh, this is not going to be good.
Immigration policy is set intentionally, right?
So at this time, we are literally a quarter of the way through Mouth the Infidel's opening statement, and we're already getting the impression he's saying, oh, this is going to be a complete train wreck.
Now, I wonder why I was saying so. I wonder why I'd be saying, did Mouth the Infidel not, Mouth the Infidel is winging it, if indeed he is right in the middle of his opening statement. Because that seems a bit contradictory, right? If he's in the middle of his opening statement, then it's a little strange to say Mouth the Infidel is not doing an opening statement. Clearly he is. Let's actually pull up my actual review. This is like in the nth dimension of debate reviews. I am reviewing my review in the midst of reviewing a review of my review. I think that works. It's almost 1 a.m. Okay, go easy on me. Okay, let's see where this actually starts.
Values and the main place.
Here we
Hello,
go.
I'm doing good.
Here we go.
The conversation.
Yeah. So
So they're debating the Great Replacement. I was supposed to debate Mouth the Infidel and Scuff Dario on, I guess it's Dario. Wait, I'm going to try to make it really confusing. Scuff Dario on Twitter. And Dario Rahim on religion with Zanzi as my partner, and they both chickened out and blocked us without any provocation. It's very strange.
yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you.
How's the audio, guys?
Yep, my name is...
How was the audio,
Rufus.
guys?
I'm a Swedish political commentator. I'm a social democrat with progressive social values. And the main place I would recommend you look if you want to hear or see more about what I have to say would be my YouTube channel, which goes under the same name, Rose Wrist.
Okay, thank you. And then last up, Mr. Mouth the Infidel. So yeah, same question. You want to introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you.
Hi, I'm Mouth the Infidel. I guess I just, in my off time, talk about politics online sometimes. You can find me at Mouth the Infidel on YouTube or on Twitter. That's pretty much it.
All right, great. All right, so today we'll be debating the Great Replacement. Each person can have
Thank you, Dietrich. That's very kind of you. I'm increasingly convinced that Mouth the Infidel is a second cloned generation of Ben Shapiro that escaped and is using his powers for good. Oh, so that was earlier. Okay, so he skips from here. So there's a dig at Mouth the Infidel, which is not really a dig. Because he's got kind of like a Ben Shapiro manner. I'm sorry, it's not an inherent insult. Ben Shapiro, nobody would really be laughing. I guess people would be, but nobody would find him intrinsically silly if he was, serious and not a grifter. I don't necessarily think that Mouth the Infidel is a grifter. I think that this was an error in judgment. If you catch me late at night in a nicer, more sentimental mode, I should add.
about 5-minute opening. Then we will have open discussion. At the end, we will do a Q&A from the audience. So if you guys have questions, you can send them in through the powerchat.live. We will ask those questions at the end.
Look, it's okay if this runs long, because it means that Rose Wrist has to watch it in order to respond to it.
And we'll do closing statements and final thoughts after the Q&A. So I guess we can get started with opening statements. Mark, did you want to get us started?
I can certainly do that.
Oh, he certainly can.
Right. Well, when I was asked to participate in this debate, I asked Brittany, the host, exactly what this debate was about. And I was given two different points in a text message that she wanted me to discuss.
Oh.
Both of these points relate to the issue of demographic change.
Demographic
The first
change.
issue I was asked to address tonight was, is the Great Replacement real? Well, the Great Replacement, or white genocide as some call it, is the process whereby people of European descent are being replaced in both their ancestral homelands or the nations that their forefathers founded.
Now, crucially, at this juncture, there is no intent attached to that statement. It's a process. Process, that's very important language. Even if they can impute it to completely unintentional... Sorry, even if Mouthy Infidel and Rose Wrist can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that this is taking place due to just organic processes, it doesn't matter, because Mark Collette is already framing it as such from the get-go. That's what's front-loaded in. It can still be, on his view, a process that should be that merits an intervention to fix it. The question is whether it's real, and if it's real, if it's a problem. And you can attack one of those. And they really should have been attacking if it's real, because we already know it's not. We already know it's the result of fudging numbers, of misunderstanding how trends work over time, of just like a basic conceptual conflation of like the juxtaposition of different cultures and different peoples in one place with the replacement of one by the other, because they're not the same. Hey, Brooks, you're alive. Good God. All right, let's bring Brooks in. God damn. I'm calling you, Brooks. Answer, please. For the love of God, I've been waiting so long. Hey, you're alive. Oh my God, how are you?
I do exist. Sorry about that. It's
No, it's all good.
Dexter is going through a phase of not going to sleep, which is
I
just
am-
the best thing as a
I'm
parent
the
that there
oldest.
is.
I'm the oldest of 8. I know, it's okay.
Oh, so yeah, so you got it. And then on top of
Insomnia. Insomnia and I were born as twins.
well, on top of it, I have an 8-week-old who's also not going down. So I figured I'd step in for half hour, maybe 20
Half hour?
minutes as I take off my nail polish and relax and prepare for another week.
Fair enough. Here, let me share this with you. So just for clarification for what we're doing.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Oh yes. We are going over Rose Wrist's response to my response to his debate with Mark Collette. That was very, very bad. And his response is very, very bad. So, yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And pursuant to that, I am going over my initial review because he cut it. So at the moment, you are present reviewing his review of my review of his review of his debate. Of his review of my review of his debate. Yeah.
And here I thought the original was as meaningless as it could possibly get. Thank you for proving me wrong again.
You're welcome. Let's go.
This phenomenon will lead to those of European descent becoming minorities in places like the US, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom by the end of this century. Now, I'm not really sure what there is to debate about this, as the Great Replacement is not only very well documented.
Let me
in
bump this
terms of
audio a little bit.
statistical evidence, but as human beings, we can also observe the world in which we live, and observable reality clearly shows us that white countries all over the world have experienced increasing waves of mass immigration, which have already transformed cities such as London into places where the indigenous people are minorities.
Oh no, there are brown people. Whatever will we do, the humanity? That's basically what he's whinging about.
Oh God, I think I watched this when you stream. Oh God, I'm
think we
having
did.
like the worst case of shit deja
Oh my
vu.
God, you're so loud. Okay, sorry, hang on. The audio on the debate has just gotten really quiet all of a sudden, which I realize is because I'm watching my audio on stream, so I had to lower your audio just briefly.
Figures as a whole on demographic replacement.
I'm not gonna like reply to stuff Mark Collette says for the most part. That's not any sort of tacit endorsement or an inability to challenge it. It's just I'm not interested in that. We've seen this a million times before. I want to see.
I
how
kind
this
of want to do
goes.
this. I kind of want to get super high and do this, so that way I cannot figure out if it's you in the video or you in the response or you here.
Be my guest. Just do me a massive favor, because my audio here is so low. Can you like lower your gain a little bit while we're going through this? Because I have this blasting.
Me?
Yeah, I have this. I have the video blasting, and you're blasting way more as a result. Because the review here that we're watching.
Is this better? Is this better?
Speak again.
I'm literally whispering.
Perfect. That's perfect. That's
Hold on,
perfect.
Wake up.
That's
So, okay,
perfect.
I'm at like
Okay.
the third. I'm at a third gain, so this is whatever.
Okay, appreciate it. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine, dude. This is great.
Debate actually begins.
So what? Real
that
quick,
how
can I
you-
just have
Yeah.
2 seconds of like pre-context? So, yeah, great replacement theory, garbage, whatever.
Yeah.
What is, if you had to sum up Roseriff's core response to this, other than failure?
His core to Mark Collette or to me?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let's start with Mark Collette, and then, because I'm pretty sure I sort of remember, but just restate your critique of him and then his critique of you, just so I can at least be caught up.
Well, my critique is principally that he didn't know his opponent, which he basically revealed earlier in his initial 4 points, considering things that they really should have done better. And one was he literally says, and
They didn't
I
prepare anything. This is the one they didn't prepare shit, right?
they did prepare it, just as you say, they prepared shit. So, Mark, he says in the beginning part of his response to me that they would have been more assertive throughout the early part of the debate. They didn't realize that Mark Collette was going to go all blood sports on them, which is just like,
Really?
it's Mark Collette on Politically Provoked. I actually can't process that. First
I
of all,
also
that
don't know what they mean by blood sports in this context.
they mean that he was using underhanded debate tactics and was being aggro, I guess. I can't think of anything else.
That's literally all the alt-right ever does.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. This is that. Understood. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Sorry
and
about
his
that.
his his response to me is I'm being mean, and if I really care about, the impact of what we're saying so much, then why am I so mean and underhanded and just uncharitable in my review of his debate? To which my answer, of course, is I wasn't debating Mark Collette. That's why.
Illuminating. In 1950, there were fewer than 20,000 non-whites in Britain.
Oh, sorry, and to your initial question, Rose Wrist's strategy against Mark Collette in this debate was to say that the Great Replacement is real, of course, but it's not deliberate, because that solves everything, I guess, on his logic.
I mean, what? So he's conceding the idea that whiteness is a thing.
He conceded the idea, well, by implication. I don't think he thought it through that much. I think if you actually grilled him on it, he would actually say, well, no, actually, it's not a thing because whiteness isn't a thing. He'd replace him to begin with. Because it's like, it's not a replacement. White people are not being replaced. There are just other demographics coming in. Most of the demographics coming in are coming from within the EU. The trends that exist now aren't going to go on perpetually into the future so that white people disappear into like the negatives. Like it just doesn't. It's not going to happen. It's based on a bunch of conflations and misunderstandings. They don't go into that.
I mean, even allowing someone to even say that whites are being replaced and then actually just even allow that to stand as a thing is itself laughable. When he says things like, oh, blah, 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 non-whites, 20,000
Brooks,
non-whites,
they're
he
saying you're
doesn't
too
say-
quiet.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I know. I agree. I'm sorry.
All right. I'm gonna be slightly louder. Is this any better? Maybe?
That looks better to me.
Okay. Short version. When he says 20,000 were non-whites, he's using today's standard of what that means. Germans, for example, Italians, Czechs, Eastern
Poles.
Europeans, Poles were not considered white at the time.
Irish.
And at the time, the Irish, oh, for fuck's sake, the Irish, yeah. So at the time, if we're using their standards, which they were also talking about the great replacement of white people then, which did happen. They were subsumed by other white people, the other white-skinned people, and now it's other cultures that are just, more diverse. It's to even allow that to stand is on its face laughable. Like that's how you lose.
Okay.
Like allowing race realism to be a thing, gross.
I have learned.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.
No worries.
It's a great start.
That's a great. We'll be back to Rose Risk by the time you get back, I think. I just wanted to establish why I was saying that they didn't have
No, thank you.
opening statement. Okay, go. Away with you. All right, here we go.
The vast majority
By the way, Dietrich, you're training me to have Brooks on with low audio, so you pay me. So just be forewarned.
of whom were first-generation immigrants. In other words, they weren't born here. These people made up just 0.04% of the population. Yet by 2011, the time of the last census, the non-white population of Britain had risen to over 8 million and accounted for around 13% of the population.
Okay, let's
To put
fast forward
into
this a little bit.
perspective, in just over 60 years, the non-white population of Britain had grown over 400-fold, and since 2011, immigration has only increased. The trajectory is clear. White Britons will be a minority by 2066 or sooner. Now, some may say this is a natural phenomenon, and others, like myself, say that this is something that has been planned and accelerated by the establishment, supported by the media, and furthermore, I contend that those who have campaigned against such demographic changes have been vilified and even criminalized. So really, it's impossible to credibly argue that such a replacement isn't taking place. The only thing we can reasonably debate is whether this replacement has been a net positive or a net negative for people of European descent. And I would argue that the consequences of this replacement for white people, especially white Britons, has been, on balance, profoundly negative. Whether this has affected indigenous Britons through falling wages, through rising house prices, or through the destruction of our countryside, mass immigration, the resulting growth in the population of these islands, and the replacement of the indigenous people has led to numerous negative outcomes, not least the rise in crime, the rise in terrorism, and of course the sexual assault, rape, torture, and sexual trafficking of more than 100,000 British girls at the hands of migrants. But believe it or not, things will only get worse for white people as they become a minority. Whilst white people are constantly told that minorities must be given special privileges and a leg up, when white people become a minority in towns and cities, they do second-class citizens. And the
God.
establishment
Okay, where
and
does
the
this-
media are they will not be celebrated and protected.
I like the
but
swarm of
instead,
flies
they will be
that's
a
hovering
hated
around
and
Brittany's
despised
keyboard.
minority that will be repeatedly
Oh yeah, I forgot about
blamed
that.
for all the ills and all the failings of the multicultural state in which they live. Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
All right. I guess we can go back and forth. So, Mouthy, you want to go next?
Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have much of like an opening statement because
Why?
obviously me and Rose Wrist aren't really taking the affirmative in this
We don't have much of an opening statement.
debate, but sort of, I guess, just with respect to my general position on these points, I would say
Why?
that,
Hang on. Why would you not taking the affirmative? Why would you not have an opening statement? It doesn't make sense to me. Now, as it turns out, Rosers did have an opening statement. It doesn't matter because they, again, miss all of the beats there. But he says explicitly here, I don't have much of an opening statement. So I'm like, why not? That's not a thing you say. That doesn't confer any capital on your end. Like in the context of the debate. That doesn't look good. I guess my question is, Rose, why did you skip over that? Because you did. You skipped over that. You watched it twice, allegedly. And then you skipped over that bit where Mouthy Infidel says, in the debate, I don't have much of an opening statement. If it's a planned debate with opening statements where you're taking turns, which you must have known, have an opening statement. This is... I'll never understand this. This is not a power move when you're in a debate with structure and opening statements and specific times which you could give out a structured explanation of your positions, why you would just yield it categorically. Like, you're not that good, I'm sorry. Smartest person alive is not that good just to wing it like that.
With respect to whether or not demographic
That is an accurate
change
statement.
is happening, it obviously is.
Welcome
But I
back.
don't think that's really the debate. I think the debate is more, is this natural or, you know, I guess when Mark frames it as, is it natural or is it planned? That's a bit confusing to me because no doubt, whatever our stance on immigration policy is, it's going to be planned, right? Our
I think I know why this is unlisted. This is going to be a train wreck. So,
Yep.
so he says, I don't have much of an opening statement. That sounds to me like he has notes and no actual opening statement. I haven't looked over his actual opening statement that he posted a link to yet. I probably should have at some point. Maybe I will later if it comes up. It doesn't matter because at this point he's literally just organically responding to Mark, and they're going to fix on is this natural or not as like the key point. So, anyways, that's enough for that one. So I am a little bit
What
perplexed.
does natural even mean?
Well, natural, I think, in this context just means is it the result of contrivance? That's basically
It is. Of course it is. It has
Of
to
course
deal
it
with
is.
states and borders.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
But
I agree. I agree. But that, for whatever reason, they think is the clincher. If they can establish that, nope, the great placement, even though it's real, and I believe, if memory serves, but I don't want to say this with confidence because I want to review it again first. When he talks to a viewer who actually comes on to critique Rose Wrist after his coverage of the debate, I think he actually insists that no, this is real and you have to account for it. But like it's not on multiple levels, as you say. First of all, challenge the notion of whiteness. So what is being replaced in the first place, and what does that actually mean? That's a whole conceptual hornet's nest. Even granting the concept, is that happening? Well, no. First of all, we have a bunch of other people being lumped into the replacing element that are, according to most lights today, white. And secondly, there's no replacement taking place. And thirdly, the trends don't represent. Sean actually has a really good example from this, where I can't remember exactly what it is, but it was something to the effect that due to the improvements in sports science, I think that's what it's called. These are all weird terms to me. I don't follow sports, but women's soccer players or women's runners or something were starting to improve to reach the where men were. The gap was closing. And so if you took that trend as just like there was some article that said something to the effect of like they're going to supersede men after a certain period of time. But like that's not true, because there's going to be a plateau at some point. Like the fact that there is a trend upwards now does not mean that simply has no ceiling, that's just going to like keep on going indefinitely. Same thing here. The bare fact. Yeah, go on, please.
At London, they talk a lot about London being overrun by non-whites and how, oh my God, it's London has 44% are non-white, and the numbers are growing and they're massive. They don't take into account that London actually, post-World War II, there was, just like in America, generalized white flight from any city. And actually, I think London's population hasn't returned to those numbers until 2015. So what we have is a city in one of the largest cities in the world being built and kind of rebuilt and filled with ethnic minorities in order to bring it back to greatness that it was not going to have and did not have until that point. People don't remember, but 30 years ago, like London was a cool place to visit, but it wasn't a powerhouse in the way it is now. It was a shithole.
Now, to their credit, I believe they actually touch on this point in the debate in their favor. Mouthy and Rose Wrist, that is. So I can't remember how well they put it. Like it's not they don't make it very strongly, but I think they do actually touch on that. They don't phrase it in as pithy a way though.
They're not prepared. They're entirely winning
It's
this.
just painful.
He also makes a comment that, and I'm
Sorry.
You got like 80% of the UK is white British. Fucking get over your shit. Like Jesus Christ, that's not even noticeable.
Yeah. No. Well, it's like it's Lauren Southern going down. Was she in France? Walking down the streets of France, just pointing out like black people. Like this was some scandal.
It was when Tim Pool?
Can't remember.
One of the grifters. They did the one about the cities in Sweden that people don't go in. And I happened to be in Sweden, in Malmo, and I went. And like I got food and it was cool. Like it was so much nicer than nice neighborhoods in New York. It was just it's laughable. This shit's always laughable.
I'm gonna play this again in case you didn't catch it.
They're not prepared. They're winging it.
Damn it.
A train wreck.
So we're gonna watch this response now? Is that the thing?
Oh yeah. We're watching the response. I'm not responding to my own video, unfortunately. They're not prepared. They're winging it. Oh, this is not going to be good.
Immigration policy is set intentionally.
We'll turn this down a little bit.
Oh, did I miss that part?
I think I know why this is unlisted. This is going to be a train wreck.
I think I know why this is unlisted. That's another thing that we see going around. He brings this up 2 or 3 more times. he takes the debate being unlisted as proof that the debate didn't go well.
I was quite mistaken, actually. The debate was unlisted at the time because he unlists all his VODs and he clips them for content later. He should have unlisted it. That would have been wise.
When the real reason why it's unlisted is because all of my VODs are unlisted.
Yes.
It's not
Yes, we've
me
established this.
hiding
Thank you.
anything.
Okay,
It's
great.
just that I enlist all my VODs. But that didn't even occur to him. It didn't even occur to him that maybe I just have all the VODs unlisted, which is generally standard practice. I know he watches a lot of Vosh, or he interacts a lot with Vosh, and Vosh, unlists his VODs or whatever. So him inferring from the fact that the thing is unlisted that it was a train wreck, it's pretty difficult to say much about that other than
anecdote was mine. I always, whenever I was in any country, I always went to the no-go zones, like where the Fox News talked about it. I'd always visit. I did it in Germany. I did it in Sweden, France. Paris had like apparently 3. They're all fine. All of them I went to without thinking twice about it, even as I went to it. There are parts of LA, which I lived in, that I wouldn't go to if you paid me. So,
Yeah.
Good work.
He's got me here though. He just enlists all his VODs, so I guess he's golden.
that is an incredibly uncharitable interpretation of just like a basic piece of information that really doesn't mean anything at all.
Sue me.
But he reads so far into it that he's convinced that, oh, I'm doing this because I want to hide it. Which also, if I wanted to hide it, I would have privated it, not unlisted it. Here we go. We go to timestamp 8:30.
Intentionally, right? Whether we have open borders or closed borders. And so when it's framed as planned or natural, I guess I'm not really sure what that means. I guess what the question that I would focus on is...
Well, planned means it's the result of deliberate human action.
Well, let's discuss
Natural
something
means
else
it
then.
happened without. What's up?
So what are we going to talk about then?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Are we watching a thing?
We're watching the thing, yeah.
I can't see anything. I'm looking at your icon in Discord. That's it.
Really? Oh,
I
it
can't
says
hear anything either.
it says I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
Weird. Hang on. Let me reshare this. That's odd. How about now?
That's why I was very confused.
That would make sense. I can see why you'd be confused. You see it now?
That's why I was sitting here. Ah, yes. Oh God, Inception. Excellent.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's fucking do
Human
it.
action.
Let's do
It's
it.
not- it's not complicated.
I've got no life.
You're just listening to me talking about Rose After that Risk's
VOD.
like the argument is that well
no
no, a lot of
context.
it did actually naturally flow from people just following their interests and going where their interests lay. There wasn't some conspiracy to turn Britain a darker shade of tan overall.
Let me speed
Like
this up a bit.
that's all you have to do. That's it.
Is the intention, is the motivation for allowing in migration, this idea that we need to erase white people or something like that. I think that's an implausible story. I just think there are a variety of more plausible explanations for why people...
So in this instance, he acknowledges it, but here we have, I'm going to call this a Sundayism because it happens another time as well where it's even more distinctly notable. Mouthy gets a little bit into his statement, or I get a little bit into something, and we ask like a question or whatever, and then President Sunday will pause it and kind of belittle and be like, oh, I can't believe, it's obvious what this means. These people don't know what they're talking about. How do they not know the difference between whether or not something is planned or natural? And then as soon as they unpause it, turns out that, hey, we do understand what's happening, but we just need to get a little more time to explain it. At 10:45, so at this point in the debate, we are yeah, I'll play from here. And then
Told it about a TV ad for oven chips. I actually had hopes that they'd perform well in this. Rose Wrist, at this point, has a history of really bad.
So we aren't even through halfway through Mouthy's opening, and we're already getting things like this.
It's because you're embarrassing to watch, Rose Wrist. That's why. And I'll say that on behalf of me, that's a Brooksism. If you want to quote it later, I did trademark it.
Stop trying to steal my thunder, man. Okay, Sundayism could have been a thing, and then you ruined it.
Look, anytime you have this conversation, there is a place, and this is one of the things I disagreed with you when you said this. Not that I disagree with your critique of them; they absolutely are nonsensical, and they don't know how to respond to this. The reality of the immigration crisis, and there is one, is similar to here in the States. We run into it all the time. It's Fox News screaming about Mexicans coming over the border. What they don't want to admit or have the conversation of is that we did this, we caused this to be the case. And actually, the vast majority of immigrants, there are a bunch who are coming for, like, hey, we just want to come visit. But the UK quite literally enslaved and destroyed most of the world. And most of these places these people are coming from are places that the UK did this to. Horrifying exploitation. And so Europe as large is having this reaction, sort of blowback of immigration and these other things due to past policies that have created excessive poverty, famine, wars. We've done this too. We're a big part of that. Don't worry. I know America sucks too. But like there's a cause. So this is where we start having that conversation. Like I said, what does natural mean? Because it is planned. Now, it's not planned in the sense that it's planned that we have the Great Replacement and there's 3 Jews sitting in a cave killing babies and begging it, but in the fact that people did things that directly caused this to be the case. And it's clear that that's the case. And this is what those white supremacists attach to, because it's clearly produced. It's clearly made by someone.
Well, not only
That's
that,
what they're attaching to.
yes, not only that though. See, because some of them will own that, and they'll try like this backdoor tactic of going like, well, we're actually just trying to again like retain like the distinctiveness of these cultures that were impacted by colonialism by making the buck stop here, so to speak. But when you even look at the statistics, because there was a study, because this is what Sean's video is so great for. He responds specifically to a video on the Great Replacement by Lauren Southern, who cites a study falsely to try and show that like the scale of quote unquote mass immigration into the UK of non-Britons, of non-white Britons, trying to show that whites are being replaced in Britain. But what he shows by reference to the study is that like I think something like 3% or something are actually like from places like Pakistan, and what's being included in there are a lot of groups, again, as we were talking about earlier, that are white. So actually the what's being shown is actually not a massive influx from predominantly non-white countries. What's being shown is just ordinary migration around the EU, of which Britain was at the time firmly a part.
Oh, no, this is fair. Right? Well,
Yeah.
And Chad Nut in the chat is making the comment. It's I'm not framing this as an argument against conservatives, which is also your response. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's an argument against what Rose Rist and them are doing right now. If the splitting the hairs is about it being produced or not, underlying everything that is a reality that everyone experiences, we know it was produced by people. And so having this sort of, oh, it's okay because it's natural or this, it's like, no, this is happening. People did things, stuff in the world's happening that's causing it. And so, to Chad Nutshot's point, the discussion ultimately needs to become what is actually happening and what is the actual harm, what is the actual produced effects. And the answer every time, generally speaking, every time is, oh, that's actually good. Oh, okay. So it's like, it's not a negative? No, it's not a negative. It turns out that in order to have a larger economy, you need people who are willing to do shittier jobs, which allows other people to do bigger jobs because ultimately labor forces are emergent from the lowest levels.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Now they have a very milquetoast, again, like they do attack it from that angle, but they basically only manage to make it as far as like at least the GDP growth, and they don't manage to actually concretize that, which is really important for this particular audience. And it's true, like their point of approach is not it's not that it's categorically invalid, except again for accepting the Great Replacement talking point to begin with, instead just trying to contextualize it. Like that line of argumentation is fine. However, there's an additional factor here. where being technically correct doesn't actually matter, because what they really need to show is that they can be trusted to actually give a conscientious appraisal of the data to begin with. And they don't respond to the most important points. Like the Great Replacement Talk Point is one, and then the grooming gang one is another. They have no response to that.
I would frame it slightly differently in
Please.
that they are, and it's the thing debaters need to understand, something Vosh has even stated, and he gets, and again, I hate that Vosh is like a leader of the pack in this. You're not debating that person. No one's going to convince Mark to do it. Conversely, also, any lefties who are watching, Mark's not going to convince us. So you don't need to argue for people who care about statistics or think in the aggregate and try to make the world better for everyone. You need to appeal to the intuitionist side of the reactionary mindset.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the only way you can do that is by going, hey, what actually do people feel? Well, they feel that we all do, that these things were produced. There's a real people behind it. Why did they do these things? Because I'll tell you, Mark and his ilk, their argument is that the Jews caused the wars in order to create Syrian refugees that go and take over Europe, which is insane. And kind of like, there's a line in American Dad I've always loved where it's like, no, the Jews are very smart. They're the ones we should be having run the world, which I kind of get a kick out of the sort of pro-Jew anti-Semitism. But it's like, that's the mentality. So you need to step back and you need to go, I need to allow for that. I need to touch into that, and I need to connect emotionally with that audience in order to show, actually, here is the real way it affects your lived experience and the intuitionist side of how you feel. That's how you win.
Mark was very clever here, and Mark knows his audience in this debate. Mark was very clever, and he did not input any of that until later on the debate when he lost his temper, and he tried to imply that Mouthy and Rose were Jewish, as if that established something. But in his opening statement, Mark was very careful to say, this is just a process. This is just a thing that's happening. His goal in this debate was not to convince the audience that Jews are replacing white people by strategically stacking the decks so that more white people or more non-white people come in and white people are sort of forced out of the UK. His strategy was just to fix in the minds of the audience that this is a thing that is happening, and to allow the inherent threateningness of that image and of that verbiage to do the work for him.
Yep. Well,
That-
and
yeah.
again, we had the conversation a while back. He's aware of the process that he's getting people to go in. If you're debating on going into Scientology, they don't start with Xenu and the planes going in the volcanoes. That's not what you do. You start with, hey, do you feel down on yourself today?
Yeah.
Like, you start there, because the rest of it, they've got a system. And Mark knows, hey, all I got to do is get people to go, hey, yeah, it is weird that there's so many non-whites around. That's it. You win. Because that next step is, hey, Googling that, which gets you Matt Walsh. And then Googling that and going into that gets you the rest of them.
Well, which is
And you know
why,
how it works.
despite Mark Collette being in very low esteem in a lot of right-wing circles, like they know these people are boobs, right? Like they know they're dumb, but they support them because they're the wedge. They get it out there.
Yep.
For whatever reason. They have a talent set where they manage to grind their way into being visible.
All
yeah.
they need to do is be watched by 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like that's their
Yeah.
goal. His audience is 13-year-olds or younger.
Yeah. And Rose and Mouthy did the worst thing you could possibly do. They allowed that to stand as the common point of contention. So it was no longer about whether or not this is even taking place, whether or not there is some fraught element that makes this entire framing sort of categorically unrealistic or illogical. It was, what is the cause? And that is really bad, because that sells immediately to everyone in the audience. Now nobody's even thinking about that anymore. Like, is this actually valid? No, they're thinking of like, oh well, is this bad thing caused by human beings, or is it just a blind process? Well, hang on, it sounds kind of bad. I don't really care if it's a blind process. And all they seem to care about is whether or not it affects GDP, and they haven't linked this into my personal well-being or the well-being of anything that I care about. I'm going to look into the people surrounding Mark Collette. it was like that's what the issue here was. I wouldn't even care if they had lost, but had actually like tried to make those points.
I'll make an edge with that because I think what he just did, what Rose Wrist just did, and the response to your critique was, I think, the problem. Your critique is, wait, they offer this up as a question. You need to say it, blah, blah, blah. And his response is, yes, but if you just watch for a moment or two, you'll see we did know. I am smart. Instead of like, yeah, actually, no, in a few moments, we were able to turn it around on him. So people like, they're to them, this is an exercise in intellectualism. Again, welcome to the modern online left, but not a debate. It's an exercise in ego stroking and proving that they're smarter.
I mean, I'm willing to entertain the idea that they were just arrogant going in, so they didn't think they needed to like anticipate those things.
Yeah,
but certainly the reply to me is certainly that. I mean, first of all, why even make one? Like in the first place, this has only been good for me. It's a very strange thing to do. If you actually, maybe they secretly like me. Maybe they know this. Maybe they're secret geniuses.
They want to prove they're smarter. It's why they wanted this debate. It's why they're doing this. It's all please recognize that I am a subject and my subjectivity is real. That's my old joke. The human being exists just to prove that it's a thing.
Let's keep going. I actually had hopes that they'd perform well in this. Rose Wrist, at this point, has a history of really badly prepared and really, like... Look, for God's sake, the man still advertises on his channel that he debated alt-hype. He didn't debate alt-hype. And when this was pointed out, he said, well, hang on, no, I debated a guy who was, like, alt-hype's Ryan Falk's editor. That's not alt-hype. Alt-hype is the moniker of a YouTube persona. Alt-hype even went on to the comments of that. It's like, I wasn't in this. What is this? And it's still there, and it got him a massive audience because like that's a high-profile debate, right? Fucking hell, it's a grift. It's there are low standards for just across the board, frankly, in this sort of like vaguely Vosh Destiny suborbit, and this is good for growth. It's just bad.
So we are halfway through Mouthy's opening statement. I haven't even spoken yet, but President Sunday had his mind up. He said, damn, I had hoped that they'd perform well in this. Implication here is that they didn't. When we're halfway...
Mouthy Infidel's first words out of his infidel Mouthy is, I don't have much of an opening statement. That's the first thing he says. The first thing he says in this debate. I'm sorry, at that juncture, following from that, when his replies are literally just going off of what Mark said, I really don't think this was intentional or whatever. I think I'm entitled at that point to make an inference. I don't think they prepared for this. This looks really bad. I think that sounds really reasonable to me at that point.
It's fine. Let him talk. I'm more interested in kind of... Because, again, you and I don't drastically differ on our opinions of how this went. I want to know what he's defending, and if he's only going to do the ego stroking, I'm smart, I promise.
No, I'm yelling at Milo Thatcher.
Who's that?
He looks like Milo Thatch from Atlantis. It's not an insult. He just looks like him. He even has the glasses.
I don't know what any of those references
Really?
are.
Oh. It's because it's a Disney cartoon, and you have no soul. All right, let's keep going.
Disney feeds on souls, so I'm presuming I'm the only person who has one left.
Halfway through Mouthy's opening, right? He also says Rose Wrist has had a history of poor preparation, and he gives one example of this. Now we'll talk about that example in a minute, but note that even in that example, there is no proof about poor preparation. The example that he cited for that is untrue, and I'll get to those reasons in a minute. But it also doesn't support his argument. Even if we go by everything he's saying, I had that video up there. I completely lied about the video title, and I use it just to advertise something.
Yes, you did.
That doesn't mean I was ill-prepared for a debate.
I didn't say you were ill-prepared for the debate. I said I was using that as an example of you grifting, which explains why you were going into a debate ill-prepared. That's the point.
You were saying he's out over his skis, and he's like, I wasn't ill-prepared for that. Like... I like it. Keep it going. This is good.
That just means I clickbaited a title. So even if he was correct with the example that he gave, that does not prove his point of saying Rose Risk has had a history of poor preparation. No supporting evidence is given. I haven't even started speaking yet, and he's already thrown this out there in connection to him saying, I had hopes that they'd perform well in this debate. Once again, we're halfway through Mouthy's opening. Now on to what he says. He repeatedly states that this guy still advertises that he debated Alt-Type in his channel. The video is still up, which I don't know why you would say something like that twice without at least just going to check on the channel whether or not
Let's
it's
see.
still up.
Oh, is it down?
Which it's not.
Okay, great. So he took it down. I don't fucking care if you took it down, Rose. You still misadvertised a debate to grow your clout. Good for you. People probably were like taking the piss out of you for that. Is that the phrase? I don't know. I don't speak this lingo. But people were probably like really like it looked bad. You knew it looked bad. Here's a question. If you didn't falsely advertise it, why'd you take the debate down? Let's see. I'm actually curious. Maybe he'll explain.
It's not up. It's been unlisted for
Why?
several months now.
Why?
So I don't know why he said specifically that it's still up. There's nothing to say about that as well. And yeah, it's not there. He also says that, oh, you know, like that looked really bad.
Okay.
What he doesn't realize is that, you know, that it wasn't actually Alt-Type. Alt-Type actually even left a comment on that. And if he'd paid attention when stuff was actually happening, he would have.
I said that Alt-Type left a comment on that, unless Rose Risk is badly repeating what I said. But I say that Alt-Type left a comment on that, and he was perplexed. That's one of the reasons why it looks really weird, because it seems like Alt-Type did not sign off on his name being used as the opponent in that debate.
Have known that there was a follow-up video right after that one where I explained the entire situation with Alt-Type. I even addressed directly Ryan Falk's comment on that. And the reason for the naming of it was because Alt-Type is like a website most commonly known for Ryan Falk, but Sean Lass also worked at that.
Alt-Type's the name of the channel that Ryan Falk works under, so it's not just a website. Ryan Falk as a personality is known primarily as Alt-Type, not as Ryan Falk. I believe he was doxxed, if memory serves. I could be wrong on that. Somebody can correct me.
Website, and we put that in the title there because that's how we were going to get the most attention for the specific video.
Yeah, we established that. Thank you, Rose.
But it wasn't like this was just blatantly out of nowhere, like there was no connections at all to this. Sean Last had worked on the Alt-Type, the website, and that's why we included that in the title there.
Hey Brooks, you've been on my YouTube channel a couple of times. If somebody debated President Sunday, but it was just you, do you think, or somebody said they had debated President Sunday and just wrecked them, which they really wouldn't, honestly. I'd probably perform very well if you were in my place. But assuming they did that, and it was you being on there, would you think that was fair to call that debate Rose Risk ass blasts President Sunday on?
Well, here's the question, because it's possible. Because have I killed you and worn your face like a mask?
Look, I'll tell you what. Okay,
I mean,
if you skip the wear your face part, I'll let you have it. All right.
all right.
Okay.
If he's wearing their face like a mask, and he's just mistaken and thinks that he destroyed you. You know what? I got to give it to him. It's not his fault that that's his mistake.
He thinks this looks good. That's what's baffling to me. He thinks that's like a pithy reply. It's like, well, actually, that debate I falsely advertised as like I basically impersonated my interlocutor as someone else for clicks, which I admit I did for clickbait, which is a strange thing to admit if you're honestly just saying who the name of your interlocutor is. That's not a thing you do for clickbait. That's just factual. Why is he juxtaposing these two sentences in the first place, or these two ideas in the first place? But secondly, like, okay, so you did so, and then you justify it by saying, well, there's a website that Sean Last happened to work at one point. That's not great. And then he unlisted it. Why? Like, he thinks this looks good. He thinks this is a justification or a reply. Like, I'm just kind of, it's mind-boggling.
But once again, even if all this is true, this does not support his take about the fact that I have a history of poor preparation.
Except I didn't. Yeah, that wasn't the argument. The argument was that you have a history of doing irresponsible things for clout, is how I would phrase that. Which is why you went into this debate unprepared.
There's no evidence of that. He also says that I still advertised I did this, that the video's still up. When
That's wrong. Yeah, he covered up the evidence of his crimes. Good for you, Rose.
It's not and hasn't been for months.
By the way, that debate, let me actually, when was that from? Let me
Oh,
actually,
dude, can we? Let's just go.
I just
Like,
want to
this
see,
is-
I just want to very quickly just see when that's from.
Oh, this is the worst part of
I
this.
know, I'm sorry. Just give me 1 second. Because it'll be on Reddit. It'll be on Reddit.
I want to know how he responds to the ways that he actually performed, because that's the part that I find. That's the part that's actually educational for people who may watch this, because ultimately we're talking about understanding rhetoric and how to have these conversations.
Yeah, you're
and how to
right.
put people in
Fine.
their place.
I'll get him
People
next
can-
time. I'll get him next time on
and,
this.
and Rose Wrist can turn around and stop being a shithead any day of the week. Like all this stuff, like whatever. All
This
of
is
it can be
true.
Fixed.
And by the way, I'm very nice to people who turn around and stop being a shithead. I have a history of this.
Now, obviously, this is just him coming in here with a very, very negative opinion of me and then citing things that, number one, are mixed true, and then some things that are just blatantly untrue when it comes to the things that I have up on my channel. But number two, when I actually had a message exchange with him privately and I told him about, hey, here's the history of this with Alt-Type. This has actually been unlisted for months. I don't know why you said that this is something that's still up on the 13th of April, 2022. He actually said this, and I quote, this is from a message DM then on Twitter. I find these unsatisfactory, my explanation of the entire situation and my reasons for explaining why what he said about it was wrong. I find these unsatisfactory for reasons I have indicated elsewhere, which I am not immediately interested to recapitulate.
Oh,
Yes.
you're a dick. I like it.
I
That's a
am.
good line.
Thank you.
What
It's
does
fair.
that
It's a
mean?
completely fair response.
He says he doesn't find them unsatisfactory, which if he's making a direct statement that this is still up on my channel and it's literally not, I don't know how that's something that he can find
Was that even a
unsatisfactory.
thing you said?
What's that?
Did you even say that this is up on his channel actively? Wasn't the line, "You're the guy who did a thumbnail that said, but you didn't"?
Well, I think
What was
in the initial debate review, I say that he still advertised this, and what I meant by that is the debate's still up there with that clickbaity title. I didn't realize he had unlisted it. So he says it's been down for months. Okay, I didn't check that, but it had been up for months and months and months before. Let me see here quickly.
Dude, if he did it for a day. Like the point is still completely valid if he did it for 5 hours and I shouldn't have done that because I didn't actually debate. I used a clickbait title to get clout that's a lie.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't lie because that makes me a piece of shit. I don't know. I don't.
Just let me very quickly. So here's what he says. So you've got the lore wrong on the Alt-Type stuff. That video has been enlisted for months now. 2, Alt-Type is a website with which Sean last worked. And 3, I made a video clarifying this and addressing Ryan Falk's comment directly following the debate upload. I actually dealt with all of these, with the exception of the video has been enlisted for months now. Because first of all, I don't care for the reasons that you just gave. And I reply, I am aware I found these unsatisfactory for reasons I've indicated elsewhere. So I should have specified the it's been unlisted, except it doesn't matter. But yeah, fair enough. Rose, I'll grant you that one. You unlisted the fraudulently titled video after it being up for months. Just you're a saint.
Still a clout chaser.
Satisfactory and dismissed. He
With wet hair on stream.
blatantly was incorrect about that. I repeated something
I've had
twice
wet hair on
that
stream.
required.
Don't.
I have wet hair on stream. I'm allowed to do that. I've got significantly less hair than he does too. Which I have baby pictures to prove. I just have a naturally high hairline. Okay.
One simple YouTube search to check. But also saying that, hey, I find this unsatisfactory for reasons I have indicated elsewhere, undefined, and I'm not interested in talking about it anymore. It's the most like, no, I disagree. Source, this was revealed to me in a dream. Like that type of thing is the impression I'm getting here. So even when I messaged him and I talked to him directly about this, and I was like, hey, so a lot of the things you said about the Alt-Type thing, it's not entirely true. I had an entire follow-up where I explained the titling of the video. I even explicitly addressed Ryan Falk's comment, and I explained that he actually, he backed out of the debate. He didn't want to have the debate.
And you really, really wanted the clout from that debate, so you pretended that Sean Last was Alt-Hype because people associate that with Ryan Falk.
And despite giving all that context and the fact that the video is literally not up, he just said, okay, I just find these unsatisfactory for reasons I've indicated elsewhere, and I'm not interested in talking about it anymore. So, blatant, him spreading misinformation, things that aren't true. He's just like, oh, well, I don't find that satisfactory, sorry.
Yes, it wasn't true. He unlisted the video months ago, apparently, that he fraudulently titled.
This, you just use fancy words. Another way you could have phrased that would be, eat my shit and hair. And that, I think, is just about the same. That's how I would respond to people. This is why I don't do what you do.
So uncivilized, though.
Yeah, but it's direct, and what's he gonna do? He says to eat my shit and hair. I don't think that makes sense in a logical way.
Here's the thing, though. I use more polite language, but that fucking offends people more. I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but it does. And I like it too much. So I'm gonna keep doing that.
Have fun.
Oh, I will.
And keep in mind, we're halfway through Mouthy's opening,
It's like that line from The Matrix 2. It's like wiping your ass with silk.
and we have already loaded all this with this completely unsubstantiated accusations of histories
Holy
of poor
shit.
preparation. Him saying that I had hoped that they'd perform well in this.
I did!
When we're halfway through an opening statement. Like, this is what I'm talking about when I say that he had a very negative mindset going in, and he had pretty much decided already that Mouthy and Rosers are going to perform poorly in this debate. They're
Well,
going
the negative mindset going in is just because, again, like, this whole debate was needless. There was no reason to have it at all. Like, the only person whose advantage it is to have this debate is Mark Collette.
to lose this debate, and it's being very clear in the way that he's talking about these things here. So let's go to the next thing here, and this is another piece of evidence of him talking specifically. Another reason of him being like having his mind made up before already about the outcomes of this debate. So we're still at this point like halfway through Mouthy's opening statement.
We'll see. The reason why I'm anticipating this is going to be an absolute train wreck, besides the fact that Mouthy Infidel's winging this, I don't know if Rose Riss is winging this, it's unlisted. The debate's unlisted. Why is the debate unlisted? There's a couple of possibilities. Either this went really badly for Rose Riss and Mouthy Infidel, and I hope it didn't. I hope I'm wrong. Or
He says he hoped he didn't, but he said that this is going to be a train wreck. He had hoped that they'd perform well in this, implication that we didn't, but now he's saying, oh, I hope they do well, but clearly everything that he's saying before that doesn't really speak to that.
Mark Collette or Laura
Not a good
Towler said
start.
something really... What's that?
It's just, it was a bad start from them and a great start from Mark.
Yeah.
He-
No, Mark had a really strong start. There's no way around it.
If you go up against Mark and Mark seems like the intellectual, you failed. If it's 5 minutes, if it's 30 seconds, it doesn't matter. You failed. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's the failure. He's not an intellectual, but he shouldn't seem like the smart one, and you shouldn't seem like stoner college kids in comparison.
Yeah.
Like, do you wonder why people moved to the alt right? Like, holy shit.
Yeah. Really compromising that would result in a TOS violation, in which case you should link this stream or save a link somewhere because this is going to disappear. Or they say something compromising, but we'll see. Which, by the way, I was wrong. He did just unlist it because he lists all his VODs, but they do. Because they grant way too much. I think someone actually mentioned to me, and I haven't seen this yet, after I stopped my review, Mouthy and Phil even goes to impute some of these social ills that Mark Collette is going on to things like IQ. It's like you don't
Oh, for fuck's sake.
don't do that here. I'm hoping, again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm hoping that was misread. I'm hoping somebody extrapolated that, but if that's true...
Let's go. I want to see this. I want to
Or-
see this.
I enlist all my VODs, and you can find that out with one search of my channel and going into the playlists. Maybe even this is from a playlist, and you can just look at the other videos there. Either or, once again, he gets a little piece of information, the fact that the video is unlisted, and reads into that the most negative possible conclusion or reasoning for why that is the case, being that in this case that we completely lost the debate and we butchered the debate.
Yep, I'm a
And keep
negative
in mind,
Nelly.
we are halfway through Mouthy's opening statement at this point, and we have all these things coming out already. So now let's keep going with another clip from, still, Mouthy's opening statement. The second opening statement out of any of the debaters there.
towards eliminating racism. And so, yeah, I just think that there are very plausible
Mouthy, you're arguing with a racist.
We'll go back a little bit to get some
being
microphone, please.
residential racial segregation, implementing more sort of integrating institutions. So, for example, there's a lot of data showing that when people live together with other races in college or universities, or when people work with other races in the military, that goes a very long way towards eliminating racism. And so, yeah, I just think that there are very plausible.
Mouthy, you're arguing with a racist. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The juxtaposing people of different ethnicities to desensitize them to their natural differences, not my position, that's going to be Mark's, is not an easy sell for these people. Like, you're He's gonna laugh. I'm seeing his face right now. He's gonna laugh at this point because I know what the reply is gonna be.
Policies that we could implement to sort of alleviate these fears.
So he didn't laugh, and that's unfortunate because he laughed like 23 times during this debate. But regardless, here we have Mouthy Infidel talking about social cohesion. He's saying that, okay, if you guys are worried that, you know, more multiculturalism or whatever is going to cause social cohesion, that's not very true. It's not very rooted in the data. All the data we have on this has very, very marginal impacts, and that can be greatly remedied through things like, you know, multiracial institutions like universities, curbing segregation, increasing economic equality, you know, military things and stuff like this.
He front-loaded the university example, unless I'm
No,
mishearing.
and also the studies don't have causation in the way that Mouthy's also implying it here. When you're talking about universities that have massive multi-ethnic populations have less racism, there's a question of where the causality is. Is it that they forced these kids to integrate, and by forcing them to integrate and by forcing them to be around each other, they've reduced racism? No, of course not.
There's also the fact that
forced integration of
they've also isolated the population of concern here to people who go to university, which implicates a whole bunch of other things. And like I'm with Mouthy Infidel on his side. I like his thesis. I like his position. I like what he's arguing for. In principle.
I don't. I mean, he's literally arguing that the people who are able to go to university are better people.
No, but he's arguing to the effect of trying to say like there aren't social ills associated with specifically ethnic integration by itself, which is
I disagree. I do think there are massive social ills. One of the great things that we need is we need to handle and grab a hold of our differences and celebrate them. The idea of integration and racial integration is racial imperialism of the soul.
Not in terms of like sort of a brute force liberal melting pot mentality where you sort of vanillify, or you turn everybody basically into just their costumes and their food. But you know, like he's basically trying to make the argument that like, look, you can have like people from vastly different cultures and places in concert trying to learn and accomplish things and to like improve the world and their lives and things like that. And you can do that without some kind of inherent racial or ethnic quality making that an impossibility. I like that thesis. The problem is who he's talking to means that this is going to be read as, well, yeah, I get that a bunch of rich liberal yuppies are perfectly happy with this kind of thing. But that's you. I'm the everyman. Like I see how this is actually affecting working people on the street.
I mean, effectively, he's going to argue that yes, for the bourgeoisie, no class struggle and no racial struggle exists. I'm the proletariat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wonderful.
Yeah, basically. And like, here's again, it's not knowing their opponent. It doesn't matter if they're right. If what Mark Collette's audience hears is, yeah, sure, we see a bunch of bad stuff happening, that the relationship with immigration has not been challenged so far in a sufficient way or even at all. Let's just say in a compelling way for me. Speaking for them, these people just seem to not care so long as they get their ethnically diverse cafeteria at the university, and the GDP goes up. And it's like that is not comfort. That is not assuage the fears of the people who are compelled to follow Mark Collette.
Well, no, but I mean, and it also, to me, doesn't assuage anyone's fears, because then by principle, anything that makes the GDP go up is good for us. And I can name a lot of things that...
Oh, yeah.
Like, again, if we're talking about lefty principles, none of these are it at all. It's not meeting people where they are. It's not talking about lived experience. We're talking about aggregated numbers of people, minor percentage gains in a meta game called capitalism, and these are your positives, and not talking about the actual lived experience of people on a day-to-day basis. Well, because we don't have a message. Well, I always come back to that. I'm not doing it.
I think the main takeaway here, and the main thing that Rose and Mouthy really needed to heed, is that people will forgive you for being wrong if you seem decent and if you seem to care about the things that they care about more often, then they will give you credit for being right if you don't.
Right.
So what Mouthy Infidel and Rose Wrist did was they really sold very well for Mark's audience the idea that even if Mark is a fucking moron, and his audience thinks he's a fucking moron too, a lot of them do, they would rather deal with him than deal with the likes of Mouthy Infidel and Rose Wrist. That's ultimately the worst part about this. It's not even, like, I don't care if they're factually correct. They're not on certain key parts. Like, again, like, that thing about the Great Replacement is massive. But even forgetting that, like, it doesn't matter. At various points in the debate, they're silent while Mark's going on like this big moralistic, or not moralistic, but this grandstanding rant. And they're just in the back kind of chuckling. And it's like, you can't do that. You need to look like you're engaged, like you're earnest, like there are stakes here. Because there are stakes for Mark's audience. They're terrified by this stuff. Justly or not.
These are all ways to positively circumvent the potential issues that might come from multiculturalism on social cohesion. And sure, Sunday is correct in saying that you're arguing with a racist, but Sunday doesn't understand here why Mouthy's doing it. What Mouthy's doing here is he's trying to dispel the other ulterior reasonings and try to boil it down and be like, hey, all the reasons you have is that you are a racist, and that's why you're holding those beliefs. So by Mouthy being like, okay, well, your other beliefs don't make sense, your other concerns for having people from a different race come over here don't make sense, isn't that Mouthy's misreading whether or not his opposition is racist? Is that he's trying to strip them of the other things that they could use instead of excuses.
He's so stupid. He's so fucking... Look.
That is genuinely the dumbest way to respond to that. It's like saying, sure, I don't know my audience, but let me explain to you how I don't know my audience.
Okay, well, I do know this audience because I used to be in this audience. So here's the mistake that... Here, putting it very, very politely, here is the mistake that he's making.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a second. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this.
I was talking to my dad about COVID the other day.
Yeah.
And he said, it's just not serious anymore. And I said, no, there's, 1,500 people dying every single day, 2,000 people dying a day. Still.
It's worse than it's ever been. We just don't pay attention to it.
So it's worse than there's ever been. And he said, no, it's not. And I said, look at the numbers. And he's like, that's it. That's the end of it. It doesn't matter. We're trying to prove that the rest of the things you're saying aren't true by utilizing statistics that have no bearing on anyone's lived experience. So that way, when you and your audience return to us and say, that stuff doesn't matter to us, we can go, so you're a racist. But the actual response is, what you've just said has no impact on my life, you elitist shit.
Yeah, thank you. You put that better than I would have. What I was going to say, and I lost for a quick second, so I was trying to recover it. Yes, the only thing that Mark Collette has to fall back on if he grants those points, as compelling and sufficient in this context, assuming we care what Mark Collette grants, is that indeed there is nothing left but his racism. The problem is you've granted him the problem. So what you've effectively done is you've laid the groundwork for him to validate the racist stance. It's like, well, we have a problem. We've identified that it's not these other things. What is left? Well, it's yeah. Go on, sorry.
I would even go one step further, that what you're doing also by talking about a GDP going up or multiculturalism is you're literally giving him the dog whistles so he doesn't have to say them for Jew. Like, it's this amazing thing that
now
bless
his rotten little heart. He does actually just outright say it, so it's okay.
But he doesn't have to,
yeah.
Because Mouthy's saying it for him, for his audience. So we can go, look, multiculturalism's coming. And then his audience goes, oh, fuck, it is? Yes, and the GDP and the economy is going up, so that way we can have more debt slavery.
And studies show that in university, where the liberal elite are indoctrinating. Yeah, exactly. Where the liberal elite has full control over the minds of youngsters. they are not sensitive to the harms that this brings. It's like,
Yeah, all he needs to do is just talk about pizza parlors and adrenochrome and just finish it, Mouthy.
am I wrong? Am I wrong? Is Roseworth dumb? Like, I thought he was smart. I thought he was cynical, but I thought he was smart.
Oh no, he's probably quite intelligent. I've seen him talk some very good videos.
So have I. So I'm kind of like I'm appalled because like this is not esoteric, right? Like this is elementary.
People exist to prove that they exist.
Like Vosh knows this. Vosh is not Mensa material. Vosh knows this. Like Destiny knows this. These people know this. This is not complicated.
Instead of saying and admitting that they're racist. Because if they do that, they're in a worse off position, right? This is how Nazis do their thing, right? They're, oh, I'm not racist. I'm just concerned about, the effects of multiculturalism on modern society. If Mouthy talks about, hey, those challenges can easily be overcome with X, Y, and Z, that's not him misreading the true intentions behind Mark or Laura. That's just him, tearing away at the proclaimed reasons for not wanting immigration, so that all they're left with is just the purely racist reason. So
he thinks the content of the debate matters, not the actual effect of the debate. That's his problem. He thinks that because he'll say, well, no, Mouthy didn't misread Mark Collette's intent. It doesn't fucking matter if Mouthy misread Mark Collette's intent. What matters is what he says and what that does. That's all that matters. Which is why they shouldn't have had the debate in the first place.
Right. In 1975, Notre Dame played Georgia Tech. No one remembers who won that game because Rudy played one round, and that's the famous moment. No one gives a shit about score if the rest of the game matters. And that's the rule of debate too. No one gives a shit about how many points you score against the other person. Jesus Christ.
that they can explain that in a way. So once again, instead of being like, okay, maybe Mouthy does know that they're racist, so what reason would he have for making this argument then? Oh, okay, maybe he's trying to get rid of their plausible deniability and their excuses for having this policy so that they can kind of boil it down to the fact that these people just have racist beliefs.
And he thinks they're trying to talk to a liberal audience, I guess, because politically provoked is sort of known for that, I suppose. Like, I don't understand this response. Like, I do understand this response. I don't understand how somebody could be, like, aloof enough to actually make it. So, I think what's going on is Roseworth and Mount the Infidel are operating from a position of profound hubris, where they think that the audience is categorically against Mark, despite the fact they're unpolitically provoked. They think the audience is categorically against Mark. They think because the right's been basically forced off of YouTube for the most part, with the exception of a few clever people who've managed to kind of tone down their rhetoric, that therefore they can actually just sit back and chuckle, and that will be enough. The problem is they're not Vosh. Like, the tough guy stance doesn't work when you look like a college kid who just doesn't care and who just thinks they're clever. Like, Vosh doesn't look like that. Vosh being kind of homely now. Like, Vosh, like, 10 years ago, when it's weird. God, have you seen, like, photos of Vosh, like, 10 years ago? Mm-hmm. It's like, it makes me deeply uncomfortable. But, like, you can't, it doesn't work. It's like Mouth the Infidel trying to do, like, a mob boss routine. It doesn't work.
But that doesn't even occur to Sunday, and the main thing he says is just Mouthy doesn't know that he's arguing with a racist. So yeah. Moving on to the next point here. Now we finally get into my opening.
No, I know Mouthy knows he's arguing with a racist. The point is the argument he's making is not effective against that audience. All right, here we go. Sorry, Brooks. I'm sorry. I'm trying to entertain you.
It's his response is horrifying here. This is really just unreal.
Can you give me 5 seconds to refill my cider? I'm gonna need it. I'll be really quick.
Sure.
I'll be really quick.
No, it's fine.
Feel free to talk to chat.
Hello, chat. If you're well. You were having an earlier conversation about if immigration, versus immigration to a country. Immigration to a country is shown to be positive economically. I believe it's positive culturally. And you were asking earlier about ways that it might be positive for the country losing people. It's not in itself a good thing for any country. But when people flee a situation...
One more quick second.
I'm talking, my friend.
One moment.
When people leave a country in mass in the numbers that we're talking about happening, often as refugees, but often through strife, famine, problematic political climates. I mean, Central America and Mexico are prime examples of this. When people leave, it eases burdens on civic systems and the space that they were consuming. It's not necessarily a good thing. More people is better, but when you have fewer people, when you're having a famine, it makes things a little bit easier for those who stay behind to try to fix it, so people can go back. This is a thing that's happened over the last 200 years. You've seen numbers disappear from places that are having mass famines. A great example would be Ireland, as an example, actually. It's not good that people left. It's not good there was a famine. Like, these aren't good things. But if everyone had stayed and no one had come to America, you have this real big problem of a lot more people dying, the strain on the system being worse, and it takes longer to repair, to rebuild, to deal with the civic infrastructure necessary. It's a really interesting sort of phenomenon, negative immigration actually being positive for a terrible situation, because it allows repairs. The more people, the more difficult those repairs are. It's a really interesting thing. I'd love to know more about it if anyone wants to start linking stuff, but those are the studies I've seen.
I'm back. Unfortunately, God does exist and he's cruel, so he made us with limited bladder capacity and with the only kinds of things that can assuage our constant anxiety as intelligent beings being diuretics. So let's continue.
Statement. And we'll keep going. So we had 2 points for this, right? We had great replacement, and then should we preserve racial demographics? And then to Brittany, are we going to have this as like 2 separate segments, or are we just going to do all of it in one uninterrupted?
I think we can just do it in one. I mean,
He has no opening statement. We have nothing prepared. They're going to wing this. They're winging this. This is... He was asking a question about what the topic is going to be and whether it's going to be broken up. So does he have an opening statement or not? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So once again, I don't understand how anything I said there made him believe that we had no opening statement or that we haven't prepared for this whatsoever. So before this debate, we had 2 prompts that were given to us before for what we were going to discuss. I can read them out to you all right now. Number 1, is the Great Replacement real? And 2, should we preserve racial demographics? I had preparation points that I wanted to outline in my opening statements for each of these 2 points. The purpose of my question is simply to ask, hey, are we going to have an uninterrupted block of open panel time where we will be talking about both of those? Or will we have half of it be segmented to the first prompt, is the Great Replacement real? And the second one towards, should we preserve racial demographics?
Okay, question for you, Rose Wrist. If you prepared as you claim you did, why didn't you know this or verify this before the debate began? Why are you asking this at the beginning? You can't have a prepared opening statement for both unless you wrote one for all different instances, and I just don't believe that you did. I mean, maybe you did. I have no idea. But like, why are you asking for clarifications about format after the debate started? Like, that indicates you don't know what the format's going to be. And the thing about opening statements is that you make them as the first layer on like a planned sequence, so you can make your case forcefully over a span of time, and you can preempt counter arguments. So am I being like unfair here? That seems like a reasonable inference to me.
No, I don't think that's unfair at all.
Thank you.
I've watched Politically Provoked very few times, and it's a question I wouldn't need to answer. Like, you do the thing, and it's...
That was what the purpose of that question was. And I think it makes sense, because sometimes they do the segmented off, sometimes they do it all in one. That is by no means proof whatsoever that there was no preparation done, or that there are no opening statements prepared, or outlines for opening statements prepared whatsoever. That is simply knowing that, like, hey, given the preparation that I have, given the points that I want to cover in my opening statements for each of these 2 topics, should I combine them into one and do all of them now? Or should I do the ones for the first prompt, assuming that we're going to do 2 segmented parts of the debate? But once again, Sunday reads the worst possible interpretation out of me asking a fairly simple question about whether this is going to be a segmented or a continuous debate, and uses that to extrapolate the fact that I have done no preparation and I have no opening statement at all. So yeah, once again, demonstrating that he's looking at everything, he's picking on every little thing and drawing it to its most uncharitable possible conclusion. Next we have timestamp at 15:45. It's just a few seconds. I'm just gonna
Wait.
Oh, please, yes.
Hang on.
please.
No. Can I see if he actually had like what his opening statement was quickly? Would you be horribly offended if we did that?
I'm gonna go cry now.
Okay.
Go do it. Do it. Let's
I'm
do
gonna
it.
do it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know it's
Opening statement's terrible. I'm done, and I'm gonna go to bed.
sounds good. I just wanna see. I just want to see what it actually is because I want to see what he's selling me here as being prepared.
Is for white people.
Just the existence of non-white people.
I mean, we just have a lot of.
Laura, are you?
Okay, so it's Laura, and then
point
it's
to the lockdowns.
Here we go. Okay, here we go. So, oh, exactly. Like meaningful American population say
In a particular thing specific.
no opening statement. Okay, here we go. They have nothing prepared. They're gonna wing this. They're winging this. This is. Okay. Stop.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, then I'll combine both of this. So, on the Great Replacement specifically, demographics are changing. Yes, that's true, but that's okay. For white genocide and for Great Replacement thing specifically, what needs to be established for it to be considered a genocide and for the Great Replacement theory to be followed is you need malicious intent to harm white people.
Look how bad that is. He just accepts. He accepts the whole thesis, and he says the issue is you can't establish malintent. And he, like, it's not technically genocide, but you just given them the it's there.
I'll grant you that genocide's happening, but no one really wants it to happen, so it's fine.
I can, like, he skipped over this. I can see why. We're gonna go back to the thing. I don't need any more than that. That's enough.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Because that
You're
was
welcome.
really, really awful.
Yeah, it was.
That was really.
It was bad. Okay. Let's go.
He's making a mens rea argument on white genocide.
Oh man.
With this play. Okay, then I'll combine both of this. So, on the Great Replacement specifically, demographics are changing. Yes, that's true, but that's okay. For white genocide and for Great Replacement thing specifically, what needs to be established for it to be considered a genocide and for the Great Replacement theory to be followed is
I've
you
had to
need
hear it
malicious
twice.
intent.
Yes, you
to
have.
harm
I'm sorry.
white-
I'm so sorry. I haven't. Okay,
No,
this is
no.
proof, by the way. I haven't
No.
pre-watched this. He's not gonna let it run long. I promise you.
people. Just because policies are being put in
Oh
place
my
that
God.
do affect the demographics in a particular way, that doesn't mean that that's the intended goal. Oh,
No, he can just. Oh no, Rose. No, you don't need that at all. You can have genocide be the result of, like, industry, for example, with no malicious intent whatsoever to, like, indigenous American population, say, bulldozing ancestral territory, causing the total dissolution of their historical, cultural attachment to a specific part of the land, such that a culture is effectively eliminated. Like, that's a thing that can happen. They don't need to establish malicious intent. Mark Collette's is gonna easily concede that, you know, it's the whole moral busybody thing from, like, C.S. Lewis. Like, they're handing this to them on a silver platter.
we're one sentence into my opening statement.
That's
Yeah.
a really
No, you
bad
need-
sentence.
It's a really bad sentence. It's like the worst sentence you could have led with. You need to identify the meaningful site of cultural identity and all that sort of thing in some place other than race. That's the move. You don't. Oh man. Like, you interrogate a couple of things. One, the notion of race that Mark is deploying, such there's some inevitable consequence from people of different external physical descriptions cohabitating a place. Inhabiting the same place. That's the one. And then on the other, you locate like, well, you're trying to preserve the distinctiveness of British culture or whatever. That is not located in the genes of the population. That is located in a tradition that is handed down and spread by acculturation, by word of mouth, etc. Exactly, Titan. You lose at this debate the minute you grant that race, quote unquote, has any meaning in biology at all. Exactly. Like,
Yep.
asking questions about the format of the debate at the start of the debate shouldn't that have been cleared up already?
So I think my timestamps are misaligned here. But anyway, he's saying here that number one, intent isn't necessary for genocide, which from one of the biggest organizations that we have that talk about stuff like this, we have the United Nations that specifically say that, hey,
Oh, hang on. No, I think this is gonna get really bad. I think he's about to do something. I think he's about to do something really dumb, though. Hang on, let me go back like 5 seconds. I want to hear this point sort of unadulterated. I'm sorry. We gotta asking questions about the format of.
I don't. Why would he do this? Why is he about to do this? Why is he about to do this? Why is he about to do this?
Well, let's see. Okay, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he course corrects. The debate at the start of the debate shouldn't that have been cleared up already?
So I think my timestamps are misaligned here. But anyway, he's saying here that number one, intent isn't necessary for genocide, which from one of the biggest organizations that we have that talk about stuff like this, we have the United Nations that specifically say that, hey, according to the convention, genocide is a crime that can take place both in times of war as well as in times of peace. The definition contained in Article 2 of the convention describes genocide as a crime committed with the intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group in whole or in part. So, for example, for the genocide definition in the United Nations, intent there is required. So saying that, intent doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yep. I was right. I was right.
Oh man.
Allow me. May I try?
You may, please be my guest.
There was no intent to destroy Black African culture. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to enslave people and use them for free labor. As part of that, they created a generalized hatred of Black people and the racial things we deal with today. The reason that the UN utilizes this very particular definition is because they don't want to cheapen people utilizing the word genocide, which I can appreciate. But if I were to say there was a generalized genocide against Africa throughout the chattel slavery years, anyone who would come to me and go, technically, which is what exactly is happening here, technically, no, technically, there wasn't actually malicious intent in the same way as you understand it, and therefore it was not genocide. Thank you very much. Everyone would laugh at that person because technically isn't a thing that really matters when it comes to genocide.
Let's just play ball for a second. Let's pretend let's just pretend for argument's sake that for whatever reason the definition of the UN was metaphysically authoritative in the context of this debate, which it's not. I don't care what some organization defines genocide as. The organization in question exists for the sole purpose of intervening when other countries behave in ways that member states find intolerable. That's what the United Nations exists for. It defines genocide, therefore, in a way that is relevant to it, i.e., this is an impunable offense by an agent. So of course it requires intent, because otherwise, what the fuck is the United Nations doing with it? It's not a thing it can really act on. And actually, as it happens, it's really not a thing it can act on anyways.
But you're talking. See, that's the other side. Is you're talking then about the criminal definition of genocide, which is used in human rights trials.
Yeah.
And necessarily needs intent as part of that, because mens rea is important for criminalities, because then you can go after a person. Without that, you can't go after a person in the same way that right now you can't really go after Israel for a genocide against the Palestinians. You can't.
Yeah.
They're totally doing it.
Yeah.
100%. But there isn't the same direct intent.
There isn't something that's legibly intentful there is the crucial point as well.
Well, no, their explicit intent is just to maintain their land and control it and keep peace. And that the fact that it's not that explicit intent to me, doesn't matter. And to anyone on the left or any rational human being, it shouldn't matter. What they're doing is absolutely genocide. We just can't prosecute anyone. Like, on top of all that, though, it doesn't matter. He is coming at someone who is saying, the Great Replacement, technically, no one's wanting it to happen. So, checkmate, atheists.
Yeah.
Now I'm too low. Now I'm too low again.
Or are you
Damn
too
it.
quiet again? Oh my god.
Apparently.
Oh,
I'm
you know
too
what
low.
you know why it is? Hang on. I every time
One sec. I'm slowly turning myself back up.
There you go. That's good. That's good. Stay there.
I'll do my best.
So basically what Brooks said was to the effect of Rose Risk's reply is like, well, technically the United Nations defines genocide as requiring intent, so checkmate atheists, which I think was well put, and I'm sad that nobody heard it.
Is absolutely not true. There is a very significant difference there. Also, specifically for the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, one of its core tenets is the fact that there is the global elite that is either actively participating in or, kind of tacitly accepting and letting happen this demographic replacement. However, what we do know is that Mark Collett believes in the Jewish question.
Great. So if you were debating the Jewish question, you would have a really strong case here. But you weren't. You were debating the Great Replacement. That's distinct.
He's a neo-Nazi. He's not
I'm just saying the Jewish question technically is a statement and not a question. Just letting you know.
Fuck. Okay, he's got me there. I guess we can just call it now. No, we're not.
Saying that demographic shift is occurring. He's saying that it's orchestrated by a group of people with malicious intent.
He didn't, though. He didn't say this here. He literally said in his opening statement, it's a process. He characterized it as a process. He was smart. He knew his audience and he prepared for this.
He even basically left it as organic. Like,
yeah.
There is no intentionality behind it at all.
Yeah, which was remarkably prescient of him, especially considering how stupid he is later in the debate, because he actually saves it for Mouthy Infidel and Rose Risk later on. We're not going to go that far, but like maybe Rose will jump, but it's
Or it is worth interrogating and running down this line and being like, hey, prove intent. Show to me that there's intent. Because of number one, the definition of genocide provided by a pretty reputable organization, the United Nations. Number two, the background information we have about the Great Replacement, which is explicitly what we mentioned. And number three, the fact that Mark Collett explicitly believes in a narrative that there is intent here.
All of this wasn't brought up at this point in the debate, so it doesn't matter.
And even then, there's kind of like an implicit notion to what Sunday is saying here. He's saying that there isn't any significant difference between whether or not this is happening as a result of malicious intent or just kind of like it's happening and nobody doing anything about it. There absolutely is. It's a huge difference there that is important to get established right off the bat in the eyes of the audience. When it comes to looking at this issue and reflecting on what we're talking about, there's a huge difference between believing, okay, demographic shift is occurring, but it's probably just a result of other policies that are beneficial to, parties that we have right now in society, or believing that, okay, demographic shift is happening and it's because people are intentionally trying to like get rid of white people or whatever.
So the exact thing that Mark Collett is describing, that's taking place. That's what you're affirming, Rose, even in this response to the response. But it's okay because the elites, they love you. That's your argument to Mark Collett's audience. Absolute.
Amazing.
That's a massive difference there, and hence...
By the way, I started using the word boob because Skeletor does, and I'm unapologetic about that.
There's a reason
it's a good one.
Talking
It's a
about
really good
here.
one. It's a really good one.
But once again, I think Sunday misunderstands here what's going on. Maybe doesn't know enough about the Great Replacement. Maybe doesn't know enough about Mark Collett and like the beliefs he has for stuff like this. And maybe doesn't understand the significance of the distinction between demographic shift occurring with explicit intent for the demographic shift as like an angle in itself, and demographic shift happening as a result of other policies. But once again, we're very early on. We're literally like the first sentence of my opening statement, and already we have handed them this on the silver platter. He also
Yes, you have.
Also says that
with parsley on the side,
you lose the minute you grant race as a basis.
Where's it gonna go with this?
Oh,
Brooks?
no.
Oh yes.
Oh no, I may have to leave. I may have to leave. I can't. I don't think I can handle where this is going. Technically, race is in the genetics of things, and it is a scientific term. So we're gonna. Holy shit! Well, come on, let's do it.
Oh no, Rose, no.
We have not granted that race has a basis, like a biological
Okay.
basis, at all
Okay.
in this. I don't know why
Oh,
that
thank
was
God.
thrown out. And so
Well, why it was thrown out is because they're granting the Great Replacement. The Great Replacement, to be coherent as a thesis, requires race to be a meaningful distinction between
Correct.
groups moving around. That's the point. Like this is elementary.
It's predicated. It's predicated on it. Like you can't have.
Oh, I'm legitimately relieved that we weren't moving directly to like. Well, actually, look, it does have a base because I was certain that's where it was going to go. So I'm glad that's not the case.
Sunday commented on it. Literally nothing we have said so far has been to that effect, and we're like one sentence through my
No,
Literally
it's
your first sentence did.
It's been
literally
to that,
your first sentence.
Yeah, it's been entirely to that effect. However, it's not to your intent. Good on you. I mean, again, like you came up with this. Well, no, I don't think you did. I think you said that sentence with the best intentions, specifically in that isolated sense.
Or so, yeah.
I don't know anything about politically provoked. Is politically provoked partisan in this?
So let's go to the next point here on 1935. Also, I should mention, these are the things that I cover in my opening statement, just so we're all on the same page, because I can't play the entire segment.
Yeah, you can.
Number one, I mention
You can. There's no one holding a gun to your head saying you can't hold this stuff, or you can't show this stuff.
how intent is something that needs to be addressed. Number two, I mention the positive effects of migration. Number three, I said that race has no inherent value in its own, which is starkly opposite to what they accuse us of doing.
Well, no. Saying that race has no value is not saying that's not biological. Like,
Oh wow.
Which
Oh,
is
God.
kind of acknowledging or conceding that that like race has some inherent basis or some inherent value. I also talk about the implications of their policies and how there would be potential civil rights abuses and other things that we would deem to be fairly brutal in the society as an effect of the policies that they're kind of implicitly advocating for. And I also address fears that they have, because this is always brought up in this debate.
yeah, but the point is that they're balanced because you've allowed that the problem that they're pointing to is real. So it's like harsh circumstances call for like cruel remedies sometimes. That's the danger here. Is a neutral audience, of which there are many, may come away from this thinking that the problem that Mark Collette is characterizing as a problem is a problem. Or is even like coherent for that matter.
Debates about white discrimination occurring now that the racial groups are more like balanced out. But yeah, let's go to the next point I have here, which is at 1935. My opposition is real.
The crisis.
Furthermore, there's also questions to be asked about the motive for such a
Here's the problem. The crisis that Mark is construing this as doesn't actually depend on it being deliberate. So Mark can concede that
if you believe in the Jewish question and that malicious aspect of the Great Replacement.
Roserist, why do you think Mark isn't front loading his debate with references to a Jewish conspiracy?
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to. Furthermore, it doesn't matter because his target audience are not people who believe in a Jewish conspiracy. He doesn't need to argue to those people. He's arguing to a neutral party, to the nameless neutral observer who's just getting interested in politics, and all of a sudden they see, oh, they're debating about the Great Replacement, whether or not it's a problem. Well, they both agree it exists. It sounds scary. I know when I try to apply for university bursaries that they say under every single one, we are an equal opportunity which means that me as a white male, I have an inherent disadvantage in applying for these, which is true, and I recognize that I didn't get any of those bursaries. So they don't seem to care about it, but it kind of seems like they don't seem to be worried about it, but it kind of seems like that they just got lucky. They were sort of born into rich families and they got in for other reasons. They just had an easy ride. And Mark actually cares about something that's really going on. I don't know about the numbers so much, but like there seems to be something to this.
My intuition feels like it feels like Mark knows more.
Or even if Mark doesn't know more, at the very least Mark is pinpointing something that I know there's something there.
And even worse, Mark hasn't invoked the Jewish question. So if you do that for him, you're then literally doing the thing
Oh,
where
God, yeah. Yeah.
you're doing the thing they want you to do, which is going to the point. Sure, I'm sure he believes in it. I'm sure he says the N word all the time. Like, he's a piece of shit. Fuck this guy. But he doesn't do it on stream because that neutral party sees you accuse him of being into the Jewish question, or don't you worry about the Jews and elites? And they go, wow, these people are really close-minded. They've already judged him. Like, sure, they're stupid, but like, what do you want to do? Do you want to win points, or do you want to win the world?
I don't know. I just want to know who's awarding points.
Oh, he is to himself. Don't worry.
That Mark Collett does, then it absolutely does matter.
That entire part of the argument. Right, but you're not trying to win Mark Collette's soul, Rose. You're trying to win the audience. It doesn't matter, and it wouldn't affect anything because his points don't depend on it being some nefarious plot by itself. It could be, he could treat it as like, sort of like climate change, right? It's like a slow shift as a result of unethical human practices that results in some bad thing down the line. That'd be Mark's position. So Rose, these guys are just completely, they don't have their finger on where the pulse is here. I don't know what they're, we'll see. Maybe they'll pull it back. Like, when this actually gets into like a back and forth, maybe they'll pull it together. But right now, it's a really weak opening.
Conspiracy. So once again, with this specifically, I don't think
that's actually extraordinarily generous. I'm actually telling my audience, hey, let's withhold judgment here. Maybe they'll pull it together. Maybe they made a mistake in their initial calculation, but they have the material in their arsenal to actually like really hit them once the back and forth starts. That's being extraordinarily generous.
I think it's in fact Sunday that doesn't have his finger on the pulse. It doesn't recognize the difference in the significance of something being maliciously caused versus something tacitly happening. Even in the example of the climate change, right? When it comes to the prescriptions and the way we think about climate change,
he's perfectly, even in the response, he's perfectly allowing that the description that Mark Colette's giving is completely on point.
Wow.
That's
this
actually
is a useless person.
But he's comparing it to climate change. Like, that's the problem, is the equivocation with something like that, where the terms in which you respond to it are the same, whereas this is like an objective human crisis. That's the problem. He actually does. I'm actually kind of astonished here.
Our discussion on that is going to vastly differ whether or not we understand climate change and emissions as kind of like a side effect of the dominant form of economic production, or whether or not we think that there is a group of people who are specifically and have as an end goal to pollute and destroy the planet. The prescriptions and our analysis of these things are going to differ greatly depending on how we analyze what's actually going on there. So him saying that this isn't actually significant, I strongly disagree with that. And I would say, if anything, he doesn't have his finger on the pulse about what's being argued and the significance of what's being argued here.
Okay, having the finger on the pulse of the people who you are arguing to, which is not Mark Collette, it's the audience of Mark Collette, does not mean understanding and being sympathetic to the stress that you put on your particular style of and focus of argumentation, Rose. That's not how that works. Like, I don't care about your pulse. You don't have one.
The next thing we have is on 2155. We're still in my opening statement here. Today, that's something interesting that I want to see my opposition you talk about. But then there's also, like Malthy mentioned, the opportunity cost that exists with having a political system that tries its very hardest to prevent these types of things. We talked about, economic things, and there's a whole lot of other things we can talk about specifically as well. Things like social cohesion and the treatment of white people is also something that was discussed by Malthy a bit, how there's a wide range of different things we can do to minimize and prevent this from happening, such as curtailing segregation, improving economic equality. So I want to
wait. So you're conceding the inevitability of what Mark's arguing?
Oh,
why?
Just granting all of it.
Yeah, he did. Let's see what replies.
I don't understand in what world somebody can say, hey, here's how we can minimize and prevent this fear of yours from actually happening, and have somebody read that as...
Nope. Because that's not what he said. You weren't saying, here's how we can minimize and prevent the fear. You were saying, hey, those effects in the real world are actually produced, and here's how we can minimize that, which is saying to the audience out there, everything Mark said is true, but hey, it doesn't have to be as bad as he said.
Yeah.
Which is granting it completely to him.
Yeah.
This, I've
'Cause, like,
actually changed
I'm
my mind. I actually think Rose Wrist is actually stupid. This is someone who needs to read a lot more and study a lot more rather than tell people what to do.
I'm gonna accept that one. So I think Rose Wrist is very young, and I think he's in a very dangerous position. And I said this about Mouth the Infidel. I'm gonna say this more about Rose, to be honest. I think Mouth the Infidel's actually got more of a head on his shoulders, which is a relative statement. So don't take that too far. But he's in a situation where he's been praised early on for, again, high-profile debates, some semi-fabricated, as with the alt-hype thing, but he has a reputation as being like, he's the data guy, one of the data guys in sort of Vosh's orbit. Horrifically, apparently, he supplied Unlearning Economics with a document, so that's a red flag to me after this, for one of his videos. But, like, he's in a situation where he's been praised for his performances way too early, which means he has a reason in his head to think that he is there, that he doesn't need to radically improve in some way, that he has like some vast gulf between where he could be and where he should be before he starts like playing in the big leagues and fighting against people where there are actual stakes if he fails, and where he is now. Oh, that's weird. This is
really
the
bad.
weirdest.
Let's do it.
This is the weirdest comment. Just I want to stop for this record. So William Cozart in Rose Wrist's chat replay says, "Why does President Sunday sound like he has wooden teeth or something?" I guess because my cadence is that what it is? Cadence? My voice is kind of like sort of slightly boomy-ish, which I guess means wooden teeth because I guess my mouth is like the chamber of a guitar, which is kind of cool.
No. It's a reference to you speak like someone from the late 1700s.
Oh, well, that's less cool.
You do use the big words, and you do speak politely and highly, and you do have that regality. You know this. You foster this.
Of course,
it's fine.
no, I
it's not
don't.
a bad
I don't.
thing.
I didn't foster this. This was completely organic and just happened naturally. I don't know what you're talking about. Slander, sir.
Yeah, there we go.
As me saying, I'm saying that this is inevitably going to happen. If there are ways to prevent it from happening altogether, then it's by definition not inevitable, right? Inevitable means you cannot evade it, you cannot avoid it. And I literally say in the sentence before, these are ways we can do to minimize and avoid it from, or stop it, or prevent it from happening.
Yes, that's the problem. You're granting that it will happen unless you make these interventions by implication.
Whatsoever. And that is something that is important to bring up, because every time in these debates, people think that like, okay, well, when white people become a minority, they're going to be treated like other minorities are. They're going to be treated in a worse way.
White people are not going to become a minority.
Holy shit.
They're going to become less of a majority. There's a world of difference between those two things to these people.
80% are white British. Fuck off, Rose Wrist.
Look, if it became fucking 40%, they would still be a majority. A majority does not mean you are most of the population. A majority means there are more of you than there are other groups of people in the population.
Plurality, yes.
There's a lot of different
Jesus
directions
Christ.
Yeah.
to go into that, but one of the main ways you can go into that is being like, hey, so one of the main ways in which people think this is going to happen is to the detriment and the decline of social cohesion. Well, there's a wide range of different things we can do to completely prevent that, slight diminishment to social cohesion that occurs, which again, very slight diminishment.
Oh my god. He's even granting the diminishment of social cohesion. He's just downplaying it.
That occurs as a result of multiculturalism. But somehow acknowledging that reality, acknowledging the fact that, hey, there is a slight hit to social cohesion that comes from multiculturalism, and saying that...
You idiot.
Oh. No, actually, he's a reactionary.
No, he's not. He's not a reactionary. Just don't.
That's to say, one, what he's saying right there immediately says that there is damage when there is multiculturalism. He says this right away. It acknowledges that whiteness is a thing. That statement is implicit in that. And he's saying that it's silly not to admit that these things are real. That you tell me how that's anything but basically right-wing ideology.
He didn't mean
And
it.
I mean that sentence.
He didn't
Tell
mean
me
it.
that sentence
Maybe he didn't mean
that
it.
he didn't mean it.
I don't know.
That's literally just right-wing ideology. There's no excuse for that at all. For someone who purports to be even slightly left of center, let alone actually somewhat left-wing, I don't. That's bad.
Mr. Wrist, if you're watching, this ain't it. Might want to go back to the drawing board on this one. I think.
Yeah, realize whiteness isn't a thing. Realize multiculturalism also is bad. Not in the it makes lack of social. It's we need to work on reifying and
It's not the. I'll reword that for you. It's not the multi part of multiculturalism that's bad.
Yes, correct.
It's the ism part. It's the pretending that actually what we're doing is we're turning everybody into liberals with sort of a mocha glazing, is the same thing as actually including people with like different beliefs and different ways of living, etc., etc. That's the point you're making, I think, which I agree with.
Yep,
Yes.
it is.
Okay, and here is how we avoid that hit entirely. President Sunday reads this as me conceding the inevitability of the fact that white people are going to be discriminated against or whatever, which is, once again...
No.
No.
Oh my God.
Where did I say that?
Because to him, the Great Replacement isn't about whether or not white people are being replaced. It's about whether white people are going to be treated shitty once it happens. Because to him, it's a foregone conclusion that white people are being replaced. He has accepted the core ideology. Again, he's a reactionary. That's it.
Can he just be an idiot who, by dint of being an idiot, says reactionary things accidentally because he's trying to defend himself? And he's not a reactionary in his heart? Can we save his soul a little bit here?
If you are anywhere on the left and you accept whiteness as a definition on its face, you're not on the left. Like, whiteness is a thing for sure, but if you accept that like white people are a demographic, that's a problem.
Look, Rose,
especially in Europe in the UK, where they don't have the same sort of, they have a brutal history of their own, but like, you know, we don't have Americanism like it does here. Black people that we brought here for chattel slavery are disconnected from their African roots. And so there's Black Americans in a way that don't exist in the UK in the same way. But there are Black people in the UK who are Africans who have actually gone there. To juxtapose those people as being non-white, but also all of the Croats, for example, that have been moving in, or the Romani, man, how they're white, right? I mean, aren't they? Their skin is mostly. So how do we fit them in? Oh, we don't count them as white. Actually, Mark wouldn't be counting them.
This is what kills me.
They're part of the Great Replacement. This makes me insane.
This is what kills me. Okay, talking about like preparation or like basic research. Sean has a 30-minute video that it lays this out. Like that was my introduction to this. I went through that. I looked at the data that he showed, and I went from there. This is not of profound interest to me. I already know it's bunk. But like there are things out there that could prepare you for this like efficiently, which would require basically the most passive involvement from Rose on this and from Mouthy. Like this is not hard. They just didn't bother.
Correct.
I don't know why he's reading into this in the way that he is, and it's a really uncharitable reading.
Why? You're letting Mark just own the floor as the grim realist here. Why are you idiots? I ratify that sentence. Like, they're not taking this seriously. This is like, hey guys, look, I got Mark Collette on. We're going to debate Mark Collette. People know who Mark Collette is. This is going to be so exciting. We're going to get so many super chats.
I'm going to let him, like, grandstand here for a bit.
Yes, do it. It's stupid. Do it.
I throw that out there as well. And yeah, all right. And then
Hey, I thought you were gonna let me grandstand. Fucking liar.
we have finally 24 minutes in. Once again,
Finally,
in the minds
okay.
of the audience, all we have is like from the very beginning, before we were even a quarter of the way through Mouthy's opening statement. This is
Since the dawn of time.
going to be a train wreck. These people are not prepared. They are completely winging it. They have no idea. I had hopes that they'd perform well in this. What the implication is here is that they clearly didn't. At this point, we're halfway through Mouthy's opening. This video is unlisted, by the way, which probably means that they didn't do well. And all of these things, and now around 25 minutes in, we're finally towards the end of
Here we go. He's gonna kill me now. Let's see it.
the opening statements here.
He's got me.
This is how he summarizes the opening statements.
He's backloading this. Remember, he's been laying the groundwork that he's gonna get me at a checkmate right here. Lion even just assented to it as depicted. The entire argument on Mouth the Infidel and Rose Risk side amounts to the whisper of a gesture towards racial categorization being a spurious way to understand the character of individuals or of people, or the identity of culture, etc.
So once again, I explicitly say word for word, racial categories in themselves have no inherent value. And that's a whisper.
I don't care if you accept that they have reality. That's the
not,
point.
That's not the same. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Holy shit. Like, this is brainworms level shit at this point.
Look, but they're brainworms about me. So I don't inherently dislike this.
if the argument is sure, you know what, I'm going to argue that black people are stupid on average, but I think we can overcome that. Jesus fucking Christ, like, race doesn't exist. It's a category we invented, dude. Jesus fuck. Socially constructed is a thing. Oh, I'm gonna stop. This is gonna give me a fucking stroke Sunday. This is bad. This got weird. I actually liked Rose.
I did too, actually. I was really annoyed. I'm not gonna say that. That's a lie. I didn't say it dishonestly, but I'm realizing as I reflect, no, I actually don't. I've said that before. I want to like Rose. I actually do. I have intrinsically no reason to actively dislike him or his platform. In theory, I like what he does. He basically does exactly.
One sec, Sith, he said that Norway didn't benefit from. You know what? I'm gonna trust you. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that said. Well, that's it.
But
Can't watch
Norway-
Rose Wrist anymore.
but
Thanks, Sunday.
But Norway didn't have any colonies, Brooks.
Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh god.
It's a whisk.
And an equally vague notion that. Here, wait. Okay. Let's let him run this out because he's.
Yeah.
He's
I'm gonna be done after this.
Yeah.
This is 2:30 in the morning. This is insane. I'm done after this.
That's fair. I'm not going to be because I'm crazy, but that's fair. Accepting everything that Mark is saying, basically, with the exception of the imputation of malicious intent by people in government and in the media.
So once again, we have not fully accepted anything that Mark has said. The only thing that we have admitted is that, number one, demographics are changing. This is 100% true. And number two, that there is a slight cost to social cohesion that comes with multiculturalism, but it's super easy to circumvent this.
So you're fucked, Rose. There's nothing else at that point. You just admitted to Mark Collette live in front of his audience that, yeah, demographic change is coming and there will be problems. And I didn't hear any qualifications of the demographic change thing as being not white replacement or genocide, except that apparently genocide needs intent, according to the UN.
Is true. The only two things we have conceded are things that are absolutely correct. Now, these far-right positions do not follow from those 2 points. This is just the truth, and the left-wing position, the progressive position, works within.
They follow enough. It doesn't matter if they logically follow if you know all the data. It doesn't matter.
Those because, there's no point in arguing, and we shouldn't argue with things that are true just because it might give people the impression that we actually agree with everything that they're saying. But unfortunately, President Sunday seems to be making a really good case here for why we shouldn't even acknowledge the factual reality, because despite only acknowledging and only conceding to the things that...
That's exactly what I'm doing. Because if you acknowledge that in this context with this interlocutor and you don't qualify the shit out of that such that they find no use for it whatsoever, and I don't know how the hell you would do that, you're giving them every point they need to make the case that they need to make to win the debate in every way that actually matters. And Rose Wrist being correct technically under specific readings by reference to the fucking UN does not.
I'm the fact that, again, I actually don't think I'll ever be able to listen to Rose Wrist again, because this is basically Rose Wrist saying, I believe these things are true factual realities of the world, and that all we can do is work slightly against them to make them slightly better. He is a reactionary who just wants to make people suffer slightly less during the Great Replacement.
Andrew Smith puts it really well here.
I can't.
Andrew Smith puts it really well here in the chat. Seems like a winning debate strategy. Yeah, you're right, but meh. Like that's basically it.
It is that.
Go to bed,
This
Brooks.
isn't-
I appreciate you suffering through what
This
you
is-
have with me.
This is horrifying.
This is.
It's actually super embarrassing.
I'm gonna. I bet money that he's not going to talk to me after this. Maybe he will. He's dumb enough, but judging from this, at least he's gonna talk to Mark Collette. But he wants to talk to me at some point after I review his review. If I were him, I wouldn't. Truth be told, I'm not really sure I'm going to tell him. I'm just going to be like, well, go to bed, Brooks. You got a newborn. You got to sleep while you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do that. It's insane.
Take care.
I'm gonna give 2 more minutes. Do it.
2
bitch.
more minutes.
Hit play.
All right.
Let's do it. I may
Maverick
just
Renegade.
drop out. I may leave. This is terrible. This hurts.
That are like pretty much that are settled to be true. He has now gotten the impression that we've conceded to everything, which we absolutely in no way, shape, or form have.
That it'll result in some GDP growth.
Once again, we didn't say GDP growth.
To him, he
Hold
hasn't cared. To him, he's not giving because he agrees.
I noticed he skipped. I don't know if he skipped. He jumped ahead apparently. He hasn't noted any response to the grooming gang issue, which is important because even if you're going to like categorically deny that this is a thing, and I'm actually
He's not going to deny.
I'm actually not
believes
sure.
it's a thing.
I'm actually not sure in the particulars of that case. Like I wouldn't be able to parse it out in real time. I'd have to actually look at the data on that one. The fact that they had no response. The fact they had no response. Not even like, yeah, well, look, I didn't realize we were discussing that in particular. We were talking about the Great Replacement, so I'm going to have to like back off of that point. However, I do have some issues with the conceptualization of these different things, and I can see how this could be inflated. That's one thing. Okay, I can respect that. They had no reply to that. None. And they're sitting there chuckling in the back because of how dumb Mark Collette is. To the audience, it looks like they just mentioned that innocent children are being sexually molested, and you're laughing. Like,
There's literally, this is, again, hey, I'm going up against someone to talk about the Great Replacement and the movement, and I wonder if they're going to bring up grooming gangs, like they always do. I should Google grooming gangs debunked, where you can see that the report about the entirety, this is one of the things like that's really easy. The entirety and reality of this idea of like Muslim grooming gangs is bullshit, and the vast majority of people are white people doing it. Turns out, by the way, that it's an everyone problem.
They bring up
that it was a lie.
That comes up later, and this is actually a really interesting point. That comes up later, but Mark Collette challenges it, and he says, well, no, the report that you have, that's not the actual report. The report was withheld, so you can't actually have that data. Mark Collette was not aware, as I was not aware, because I hadn't been following this very closely, that the report had in fact been withheld. This was publicly known. However, there was backlash, and they let it loose. I don't know if it was because of backlash, but for whatever reason, they published it later.
It's public.
They published it. Yes, now it is public. But
it wasn't at the time because it had people's fucking names in it.
Yes. Now here's the crucial point. When Mark Collette says this, Rose Wrist's reply is, well, what am I looking at then? Which is fine. If that is immediately followed by, well, you're incorrect, Mark, because I have the document here. It says this here. It comes from this source. And you were correct, it was actually withheld, but then it wasn't later on, because I did my research and I know not just the document that I'm citing, but about the document that I'm citing. They didn't. Minutes and minutes later, like I think like 20 minutes or so, I'm
But,
recalling
or you
this.
just respond and say you're a liar. I'm looking at it.
They didn't know. That's the crucial point. He didn't know that Mark was a liar. The reason why he didn't just say immediately, like, no, Mark, you're actually wrong and stupid. Here's the document. Here's where it came from. It was published after they initially said they're going to withhold it. He didn't say that because they didn't know. They didn't know that. And if he starts, like, being belligerent at that point, and he's wrong, which was a real possibility at that point, because Mouthy had to search for that afterwards, because Mouthy's the one who makes that clarification later on. And I give him credit for that. I'm like, you sweet, sweet lad. Thank you for finding that data and actually like breaking down Mark Collette's credibility after like an hour or so of this going on, of you just being on the back foot the entire time. He didn't know. That was sheer luck that they found that in time. Like, it's simply possible that they didn't find it or whatever. Like, they didn't know about their sources. They didn't know the history of them. They had they knew that here's a document that says da 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 da. Cool, we're golden. That's all we need. Like they didn't know. They had no sense of like what had actually gone on around this issue. They knew that Mark Collette had like the grooming gang point because they had that document somewhere. Rose had to dig it up, which again is fair because the debate is about the Great Replacement, not about that. But there's a tangential relation between the two. If you're going to bring up a document, it would have been better almost if they didn't. If they failed,
I was saying this to you in those few seconds. I brought the document up. There's a thing called the internet and Google that just take a moment and learn how to use it. I'm done. This is it. That's it. I can't. This is dumb. It's been lovely Sunday as always. I love your audience. This is embarrassing, and now I can't watch Rose Wrist, and I think I'm even subbed to him, so that's a shame. So I'll be getting rid of that.
Okay, well,
Good
I
day.
think I can
Have a fun time.
I think I can save him. So don't unsub yet.
Oh, I'm unsubbing, and soon we will actually discuss why Dune is just the worst movie of the last couple of years, and I look forward to it.
It's not the worst.
I mean, the fact you said that, I was shocked, but it's your point to make.
I just like Oscar Isaac. Okay.
That's terrible. For what?
I don't know. He's got a nice stare, I guess. He looks good with the beard and the Atreides armor. I'm trying to be positive, man. Okay, go to bed. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We'll run this for a little longer.
I think maybe Mouthy mentioned GDP growth at some point, but that's not all we talked about. We talked about a wide range of different benefits for migrants. We talked about the fact that race had no inherent value. We addressed the intent aspect that he brought up. We talked about the potential implications of policies that would arise from the problems that they're identifying, that they would prescribe to those things. And we addressed the common fears that always show up of like white people being discriminated against now at this point, because we have a more like multiracial society. So him saying that all we did was vaguely gesture at race not being super important and say, but my GDP, bro, is really like reductive.
This is idiotic. Yeah, it's reductive again, because the point that Brooks made was very good about the sports game. I can't remember because I don't follow sports, but people don't remember the hubbub. They don't remember like all the little things that happened amidst the chaos of the event. They remember the key moments from the event, the key victories, the great hits that were made. That's what lives on. And in this debate, grooming gangs were brought up. You had a weak-ass reply. You sat back and chuckled silently while Mark Collette was allowed to grandstand. And your reply was, yeah, the demographic change is happening, as a retort to somebody arguing for the Great Replacement as a real thing. But, technically, in the UN... Not, is it? No, it's not. The UN defines genocide as requiring intent. I don't think there's a Jewish conspiracy behind the Great Replacement that, in all but name, I have basically ratified for you, Mark Collette. You're welcome. Therefore, checkmate. The thing you're describing with all of its negative effects, which I am basically granting but downplaying, is technically not genocidal. Where is your God now? Like, this is... It's appallingly stupid. I know it's not because it's not. There's a comment here that says, "I swear this is because you two look young and he's biased." I'm not biased against young-looking people. I think Destiny in his grungy T-shirt would do a million times better here because he would know how to hit back. The issue is you look like you don't care. You look like you don't care, and you look like you don't care, Rose, because the truth is you don't. Sorry, you don't. That's why 90% of your complaints here are, I'm not being nice to you, and I misunderstand your secret feelings and intentions. My heart bleeds purple porpoise pus, okay? I'm so sorry that hurt your feelings. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Nobody cares. There are no trophies for you thinking inside your head that you're one of the good guys while you're doing this. Oh, man. What have I signed up for? Should have watched literally anything else but this.
All right, Lori back, or should we just go?
So now next timestamp is at 7:55, and this is just a minor point about just Sunday not tracking what's going on.
Just about my hair. you saw where the mouse was circling.
So apparent that it is spoken about openly by those who support it. Our elected officials, the media, and political pundits openly brag about our diverse nation and how our countries are becoming more and more multicultural. In fact, our demographic replacement is only denied when it is spoken about by somebody who is against it. One example of this is the left-leaning Guardian newspaper, who published an article titled "The Last Days of..."
It's only denied when it is spoken about by someone who is against. Yeah, because they're against it, you muppet.
So once again, I don't agree with what Laura is saying, but President Sunday completely misunderstands what's being said here. He's not tracking what's being said. What the point is in Laura's opening statement is that, hey, everyone acknowledges that demographic change is happening. It's even celebrated. The only time when it's denied is when people who are against it talk about it. That's when it's denied. And for somehow Sunday reads this as if what's being denied is the fact that it's a good thing, when that's not at all what's being talked about. So here's just a small instance of him not tracking something, which isn't super significant, but it's in the connection with all these other things.
Wait, what? The fact that it's a good thing. Hang on. Sorry, I need to hear that again. Does he have notes, or is he winging this? I guess he has timestamps.
Lori back, or should we just...
Sorry, I just need to hear this again.
Next timestamp is at 7:55, and this is just a minor point about just Sunday not tracking what's going on.
So apparent that it is spoken about openly by those who support it. Our elected officials, the media, and political pundits openly brag about our diverse nation and how our countries are becoming more and more multicultural. In fact, our demographic replacement is only denied when it is spoken about by somebody who is against it. One example of this is the left-leaning Guardian newspaper, who published an article titled "The Last Days of..."
It's only denied when it is spoken about by someone who is against. Yeah, because they're against it, you muppet. Oh yeah, that was a misread. Yeah, so I was hearing those two compounded together. The multicultural elite pundits. Yeah, that's fair.
So once again,
that's not really once again though. I wasn't particularly concerned with what they were saying. I was barely paying attention. I was more concerned about Rose Wrist and Mouth the Infidel's replies.
I don't agree with what Laura is saying, but President Sunday completely misunderstands what's being said here. He's not tracking what's being said. What the point is in Laura's opening statement is that, hey, everyone acknowledges that demographic change is happening. It's even celebrated. The only time when it's denied is when people who are against it talk about it. That's when it's denied. And for somehow Sunday reads this as if what's being denied is the fact that it's a good thing, when that's not at all what's being talked about. So here's just a small instance of him not tracking something.
Brilliant. So the only retort you have thus far that lands, and it does land, great job, is I misheard Laura Towler's husband, boyfriend, or somebody who's not Laura Towler saying a thing about, yeah, great, good job, Rose, brilliant. You got me.
Which isn't super significant, but it's in the connection with all these other timestamps that I'm going to go over now and what I've already gone over
Oh
to
my
illustrate
God.
that he misunderstands things really simply, and he doesn't bother to go back and be like, hold on, did they just say something really dumb that I perceived, or maybe I missed something? Maybe I'll go back. Once again, Sandy does not go back and double check that he understood this correctly. He just kind of, if he gets the impression that this was something really stupid, he won't go back and double check that that's actually what was being said. He just kind of runs with his interpretation that he has. And here we get to more of the intent issue specifically. So we're right now going to take a bit of a jump towards 4205 in the video.
This is the thing I regularly do, but he has to jump to 4205. Okay.
As whether it's intentionally or they're just letting it happen. Either way, they're letting it happen. Surely that's the thing that matters.
I think, no, it absolutely does matter because, for instance, if we talk about the intent and why this is happening, then me and Malfi can provide arguments and be like, hey, maybe this isn't some big conspiracy to, like, get rid of white people. It just ends up being the fact that, hey, a lot of the policies that are very important in the economic development, in domestic development of these countries are going to be policies that favor migration. And that is the positives that we want to get from migration that we're trying to get at. And then as a side effect of that, demographics are going to change. And if we can agree on that that's probably what's happening and it's not some big, huge conspiracy, then it's going to be easier for us to talk about that and to talk about the effects and whether or not they're positive or negative. But if you guys have the perception...
They don't need to make it easier for you. Like, you just seeded all of the ground, Rose.
So once again...
No, you seeded all of the ground. They don't care if GDP goes up. You need to make these benefits concrete for the everyman who doesn't see these benefits because of other things. Like, no, you seeded everything. This is how this is being read by their audience. You are basically accepting the Great Replacement thesis. You're just redescribing it as simply demographic change because it sounds nicer to you. And you're saying, well, hey, technically we've seen papers and it seems to improve the economy. They don't care, Rose. They're citing things like crime, like grooming. They're citing a breakdown of social cohesion, which you accept. And you haven't challenged the race point either. You said, we don't think race matters that much. That's just your opinion. Why are you not actually attacking the fraught history of the race concept here, where it doesn't actually track real differences between people? You're just saying that you don't think that this thing that actually is like a line on your reasoning, apparently, a real track between different groups. You're just saying that you don't think it's particularly relevant, but you've accepted the category. So, given that you've demonstrated that you have a lackadaisical response to things like the grooming of children, like the sexual exploitation of children, why would somebody give a damn what you think about it?
Nothing has been conceded here whatsoever, apart from the factually correct information that demographics are changing.
You're an idiot, Rose. I'm done. It's almost 3 a.m. You are an irredeemable moron. I don't even know what to say to that. I don't know how you managed to repeat this. Like, here's the difference. This response is scripted. Minimally so. Like, he has timestamps, he has his replies already thought out. And this is what you give me. This is what you have. I think you actually had more time to make this reply than you did to prepare for the debate. This is what you have. Unfucking believable. Your job in this debate, insofar as you took it upon yourself to have the debate, which was grossly irresponsible, but your job once you had done so, was to not let Mark Collette walk away, having convinced the audience, or having made the case to the audience, that the Great Replacement, as construed by him, is a problem, such that an audience onboarding that as a problem now feels the pressing need for a solution. You gave that to him. You didn't challenge that at all. Not only did you not challenge that at all, you rephrased it as mere demographic change and then ratified it in front of that audience. So that's not even a point of contention. That's common ground. You did Mark Collette a favor here. Yeah, exactly. You provided free sloganeering. This was... I'm gonna run this for like 5 more minutes. I fucking hell. This is actually... Like, I actually was rooting for your side, Rose. I was not rooting for you to be in this debate, because I've seen you before, and you're not strong. You can be right, but you're not strong, and there's a difference there. But I was actually rooting for your side in this. I was actually deeply frustrated and upset when I saw the performance that you gave. It had nothing to do with any animus against you, because I don't have any. There's a reason why, even despite knowing this thing, I don't dedicate time to criticizing you. You don't matter. This is the most you have mattered on my radar, and it's purely in the negative. Stupid. Just absolutely stupid. Grow up. Anyways, I'm going to bed. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for suffering through whatever it was Rose thinks this was. Take care.